There it is. UFO Talk with Squarepainter. Holy shit.
All right.
There.
So now I'm gonna go ahead and post. I'm gonna tweet this out or
Sure.
post this out.
Uh-huh.
So we're in kind of. Oh. Hey everybody, hold on. Sorry guys. The audio was funky. It's basically Zoom updated, and it wasn't taking the audio and putting it where it needed to be. But anyway, it doesn't matter. This is Order 42. I'm Rob. We're here. We're talking UFOs, and we're talking with Squarepainter. How's it going?
What's going on, man? I've been in hype to do this since last week. Since I watched your video and I saw a comment, I left a comment on there, and then I went back and I watched the rest of the clip today just to like get an idea of what you were talking about. We're very much on the same page of a lot of UFO stuff, which I like.
Well, cool. Well, I mean,
Yeah.
I've got basically a list of questions that I want to ask you, but
Sure.
again, we can go wherever we want to go here. So,
Hmm.
guys,
Yeah.
let me know in the chat as long as if he sounds okay. I mean, it looks fine on my end, but I just want to make
Yeah.
sure.
Let me know if I sound all right.
Yeah, I mean, I think it'll be fine, but man, it's been a while since I've done this, so
Yeah.
pardon my rustiness.
Sounds fine to me.
But
Thank
but yeah,
you,
we got
Starbucks Rain. Everyone says sounds good.
yeah,
Carbonite.
Ricky's. I mean,
Right.
Ricky's here, Bucho's here. I mean, hey guys, Carbonite's here. Now, I just want to say
Bucho, I have to ask, did you get that name from Desperado? Because that was the name of the main
that's
bad guy.
exactly where he got it.
Are you fucking
Yeah,
serious?
that's
Dude, high five, man.
yeah,
I
that's where he
love that
got it.
movie.
But yeah, just to let you guys in chat know, of course, since we're going to be having a conversation here, I might not see your chat. I know that I usually am like, I'm all over it and I'm reading every chat and I'm even responding to every chat. Just know that it's, I'm not ignoring you. I'm paying attention to Squarepainter here. He's right here. So,
I'll try to keep up with the chat also. I will warn you guys, I go off on tangents anyways. And when it comes to something like the UFO topic, which I firmly believe is the most important thing ever in humanity, and we're coming to like an inflection point with it. So I apologize if I start on a topic and I start here and I end up over there within 5 minutes. It might happen.
I'm
It
cool
is
with
going
it.
to happen.
I mean, I'm just going to let you
All
go.
right.
Cause I mean, there's going to be, I'm new to this still. I
Uh-huh.
mean, I say that I've been interested in it my whole life, but I'm new to all of this, the newer stuff, I mean, of course I paid to,
Right.
I saw Fravor on Rogan,
Uh-huh.
and I've seen things here and there, but for the most part,
Yeah.
you seem to know your stuff, but
Um, yeah, yeah. I mean, we can get started with like intros, how we know each other
yeah.
before like we dive into all that. So yeah, a good day to you. Thank you, Bucho. I appreciate it, man.
Oh, I didn't even, oh, there you go. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, here's another thing that
Uh-huh.
YouTube has changed in the last, I guess the last week. Ads are
Oh,
now forced on live streams. So if you get an ad, I didn't do it. It's basically you basically have two choices. You can let YouTube just run rampant, or you can limit the amount of ads. So just know that that's just the way it is now on YouTube, which is kind of a thing.
they just keep making it worse and worse. Like my partner Nina upstairs, they're streaming right now on Twitch and they have the forced ads on there too.
Yeah.
It's terrible.
Yeah. Yeah, well, YouTube was always with live streams, you could turn all that off.
Uh-huh.
And I had that's I actually turned on something and then people were like, "Hey, why am I getting an ad?" And I'm like, "Oh, crap. I'm sorry. I changed something. I didn't realize what it was." But
Mhm.
now it's forced. You have no ability to just leave it off. So just know that, hey, I love you guys. I don't want you to have to watch ads when you watch me, but that's where we are now. So just keep that in mind.
Well, you
Um,
got me until whenever. Like I wrapped up painting tonight because I was so hyped to talk about this, and I pretty much blocked out like the rest of my night. Let's do this, because
okay.
you can't. You even said like let's do segments of like an hour. I'm like, man, you can't do UFOs in an hour. Like 3 hours, maybe
Well,
three
see,
hours. You're acknowledging the tip of the iceberg.
yeah, and the thing was I was trying to be respectful of your time because
Oh,
I
thank you.
I have guys on here, like I've had people come on before, and I usually go about 3 hours, and they go 3 hours, and I'm like, oh, okay, we can just do an hour and a half, 2 hours, or whatever. So I just I was that was more of a feeler kind of
I
thing.
appreciate it,
You know what I
but
mean?
yeah, this is fine. Like this, like I've said, this is the most important, one of the most important things ever, if not the most important thing. We can get into how I get into this, but I'm
Yeah.
41 years old. I've been obsessed with this stuff probably since about the fourth grade. Is when like 80, 89,
Okay.
90 is when I really started getting into this, and it's lulled and then it's come back of the obsessive craziness of it. Sometimes it's like through the roof and it's all I talk about. And like Nina, my partner, will be like, just shut the fuck up with the aliens. I get it already. Any of my friends ask any of the guys in my band, I never shut up about it. And then other times it's like, okay, a little bit down lower, like when there's not a lot of news. But I mean, since 2017, it's been nuts. And then like this past year has been absolutely bananas.
It
But like,
has
you
been
want to get
nuts.
into like how we met at
Yeah,
first,
actually
so people know who
that's
the hell I am?
well, yeah, yeah. I wanted
Sure.
people to know who you were, and like how can people find you, all that kind of stuff. By the
Sure.
way, there is
Sure.
a thing in chat, the exclamation point SP Nightbot over there in the corner helping me out.
Uh-huh.
Thank you, Nightbot. But if you do that in the chat, it'll come up with your Twitter/X profile and Instagram, and then yeah, you can find
Well,
all your stuff from there too. But
it's really easy because I go by Squarepainter and I got Squarepainter on Twitter. I don't call it X because it's friggin' Twitter and Instagram. Square Painter on there too. I have a Facebook business page. I want to get rid of it, but people still message me on there, so please don't. Just Instagram and Twitter
okay, okay. Well,
on
there you
Square
go.
Painter.
I
I
want.
do have a YouTube channel. I haven't uploaded in like 3 years, but I have like time lapse videos of my paintings if you guys want to check that out. So what I do is I go by Square Painter. I paint squares. I paint stuff from old video games. Everything like 8-bit, 16-bit, all the stuff that we grew up with. And that's how I met Rob was, you working with the Game Chasers with Billy and Jay. And I knew them just from going to conventions for years. Like I was part of RetroWare TV back in the day when that was like when there were factional sites of like
right.
content creators. I was with Screw Attack actually in like 2010 or so. And I already knew the RetroWare TV guys. And like I went to them probably like 2012 when like Pat and Norm and that whole crew, that whole cast of characters. So yeah, it was at like 2013 at MagFest. I actually ended up joining Retroware TV. We had this, they had a massive party in their suite and just drank an absurd amount of beer. And I'm like, fuck it, I'm joining you guys. And then I knew you because when Billy and Jay were doing the movie, I backed them on Patreon right away. And then I saw that you were involved. You were like the main producer, writer, something, editor. I know you were like right in there with that
Well, I mean,
everything.
I would say, well, script supervisor was what I came on board to do, but I was
Uh-huh.
doing a little bit of everything. I was helping to rewrite on the day. Um, I mean, I did some casting. I did a bunch of post production stuff for him. Basically, anything Billy needed that he couldn't get to, that's what I was trying to help with. So, I wore a lot of hats
Yeah,
on that
that's
movie.
always what it seems like in like any creative field. But we met really briefly at that Too Many Games event outside of Philly
Yep.
last spring when they came out and James was doing the ABGN movie thing too. I had to take off early that day, otherwise I would have hung out with everyone. So I was only there for the show. But yeah, then I was sub to your channel and I would watch every so often. And then I just happened to see the other day, like, oh shit, Rob's into UFOs and like, damn, he's dropping names. He knows what he's talking about. Like, okay, I'm into this.
It's man, it's like it's kind of like the Matrix, where they just download it in your brain and you're just kind of like, that's
Yeah,
basically
yeah,
what I've
it
just
is.
it's a
It is
lot.
the scene in the Matrix with getting it plugged in. I honestly feel like acknowledging the NHI alien, whatever you want to call it, is almost like a disconnect from the Matrix of realizing like that our society and how we live and pretty much I'm a firm believer in like how we are as human beings and the way we live is not correct. We are not meant to live the lives that we do. We are like, I'm sorry, I'm going to get into like metaphysical, like hippie shit.
No.
I we are like spiritual friggin' beings. We're not meant to like work jobs for money and just waste away like this. We're not meant to do that. Like ever since I was a little kid, I've just felt like this is so stupid. This is so weird. Like the concept of money is just weird. It's just this made up fantasy thing
It's
that we have, and like there's got to be so much more out there.
it's weird that you say that too because I felt that my whole life too. Money has never driven me like at all.
Yeah,
And
like
it's
I absolutely hate I money's nice to have because it gives just the freedom to do what you want, but like the concept of it, I hate it. It
yeah.
it it brings out the worst in people is
I
what it really does.
so okay, so I just finished or I say I finished. I finished the first draft, I guess, of the next movie, right? Of one of the next projects we're going to do, right?
Oh, that's great.
But I was writing stuff when I was like 8 years old. And one of the
Oh, yeah.
books that I wrote, one of the little short stories that I wrote when I was a kid was called Money is the Root of All Evil. So it's
It
something that
it is.
it's just weird that you say that.
Yeah, because like you get in, there's so many topics tangentially attached to the UFO topic, and so much of it. I didn't even mean to talk about this early in the conversation.
It's
Like we
okay.
could
It's
start with
okay.
something else because this is like getting in deep. That you know how we live in our monetary and our system and everything that is in place and why it's in place and who control like it's the super minority at the top that controls the majority of the wealth and the power, and they're the ones that are fully aware of this alien presence. And I mean the big reason why they don't want this out, it's because it 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 challenges their ultimate control over our human society of what we have.
I was
Essentially
actually going to ask you
it's
that.
like, yeah, like I'm not talking about like politicians that run shit. I'm talking about like the people that run the energy corporations, the tippy top of the energy companies, the people that run the banks, there's that big economic summit in Germany every year, like those people that go there, like not just Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos, like the other multi-billionaires that are attached to like aerospace corporations, especially aerospace corporations. Everyone should have their targets on locked on them of exactly what's going on, because I've been hearing their names for years, like Raytheon and Lockheed Martin and Boeing, EG&G. I think they changed their name now, but all of them, man, all of them. have been guilty about holding this secret. It's not mostly, it's like from what I've learned in like the past few years, it's not like it's the government. It is, but it's more of privatized multi-billion dollar corporate interests that are holding the keys to all of this. And it's compartmentalized stuff within government about this. But we could that's for later to dive into. We could start on the surface. That's like 6 levels
Well,
down.
that's
Like,
that's the thing. I was gonna ask you. Okay, so I mean, we're
yeah,
going down
start
the.
with your
You're
questions.
hitting on
Let's
my
start with
questions.
that.
You said y- any. Do you have any personal experience with? Have you ever
That's a
seen
good
anything?
place to start. The only personal experience that I had was, and I don't think it's personal as in it was meant for me to see. I just happened to see it. So a few weeks after, I grew up in Brooklyn, New York, and then we moved up to Orange County, New York, and that's in the Hudson Valley, about an hour north of New York City in New York State. And there's something about that area. There's magnetic ley lines that all run throughout the earth, and there's a big magnetic ley line that runs right through the Hudson Valley. And I don't know, these things are like vectors for like not just UFOs, but paranormal weirdness. So the only thing I ever saw within like I moved in like August of 91. At the end of August, I'm standing in my backyard. The sun is setting, so it's like behind the horizon, but it's still light in the sky. And I'm looking and I see this white orb in the sky, and it's about, I don't know, the size of like a $50. And it's just so crisp and so bright. And something's like, just keep watching this. So I'm watching this thing and it's completely stationary and silent. And it's sitting there, and then it splits into 3 orbs in an equilateral triangle and just split so smoothly. And it sat perfectly in the sky. And then it started moving a little bit to the right and then like blinked out. And the way it moved was like so smooth, like the way planes move. There's like a clunkiness to it,
Yeah.
but there was like this gracefulness to it that is not human. It was just the way it moved was inhuman. And I'm watching this, and like I already knew a little bit about, like, I'd heard of Area 51 and Grays and Roswell by that point. I'm 9 years old, and I saw this and I never forgot it. And then actually, like, I started getting all into UFOs. I started reading all these books, and I started following all these like authors and journalists and stuff like that. And you remember the show Sightings? Remember that one on TV?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, it was like Unsolved Mysteries, but it all focused on like UFOs and ghosts and shit. I was obsessed with sightings. My mom used to buy me the books all the time. I still got them at my parents' house. And I remember watching that, or like any alien, UFO, whatever documentary was on TV or something I watched. And I remember hearing somebody say that they saw an orb split into a triangle of orbs and then like move to the right and disappear. And I was like glued to the friggin' TV. Like, how do I need to hear that again? Like, somebody saw what I saw. And as I've just dug into this, that's like, I guess if you could say sightings are common, it's one of the more common things of an orb splitting to a triangle, or rather like orbs that are a triangle going to one orb and then that disappears or it takes off at like an incredible speed. So I kind of saw the reverse, but
Hmm.
that was the only thing that I've ever seen. I've tried the spiritual CE5 meditation. I have very mixed feelings on Stephen Greer. I know you talked about him, but CE5, I've tried that and I've never been able to get anything. I've heard stories from people that say they have had very, very vivid contacts with beings or have seen stuff outside, seen orbs in the sky outside afterwards. But that I've never had anything happen with that. Just that one thing that I saw when I was 9.
Interesting. Yeah. I have never personally seen anything, but
Oh shit, Billy's in here.
yeah,
Hey, how's it going, man?
Billy's here. Remember the deer with gills in its snout? Do you remember that?
No, I don't.
That sounds
I don't
really
remember that
strange.
one.
But
There's like there's so many episodes. There's like 7 seasons. I don't know if the YouTube channel's up. Somebody had like VHS rips of them online. It's great to go back and watch those, especially the Doomsday ones. It's like the world's gonna end in 1995. Wait for it.
yeah,
Like, you guys are great.
yeah, and I think that's one of my biggest problems with any of the paranormal stuff, any with the UFOs, whatever it is, anything unexplained, right?
Uh-huh.
Anything without concrete evidence.
And that is the big problem here. But anyway,
there's so much freaking noise.
there
There's
is
so much,
so much.
you know, like somebody on Reddit earlier this week or last week, they posted they're like, "Hey, I saw this video of like an alien autopsy. This looks real. What's going on?" And it ended up that it was, it's something that was on TV that was, they said, this is how easy it is to fake people out, is to do something
Yep.
like this. By the way, if you see the thumbnail and you wonder what's going on there, okay, number one, the landscape is from California when I was at the SoCal Gaming Expo. Of course, the picture of me was taken in my backyard, put in there. You took that picture in and I'm guessing your office there. And then the
Oh yeah, that
UFO,
was yeah.
the UFO is Cad Bane's hat from Star Wars. So,
I love it.
so look, if you see that photo anywhere, you know that it's fake.
We
Okay.
didn't really see a UFO. No, I've
No.
never seen. I would absolutely love to indisputably, and especially with Nina, because Nina's like the skeptic in this
Yep.
and like can't believe any of this until the really hard science comes out, the peer-reviewed papers, everything before they're going to believe it. I'm like, I want to have that sighting of seeing a clear as day silver disc in the sky hovering, do some anti-gravity stuff and take off at an incredible speed. Like, I have to see that at some
Oh,
point
I
in my
know.
life.
I'm the same way. I'm the same
Yeah.
way. It's like I've always been interested in tornadoes too. I want to see a
Uh-huh.
tornado, but
You live in Texas and you've never seen one?
I've been in one, but I
Oh,
didn't go outside.
no, well, no, but like,
But yeah,
yeah,
I've been in one.
I lived in Texas for like 5 months. I lived in Austin in like 2013, and there was we had a tornado warning and like the sky turned green and everything, and
Oh
it saw
yeah.
a little bit of like a funnel cloud come down, and I was like, this is like normal, I guess, for
Oh
you.
yeah,
Like,
yeah. It's absolutely normal, especially in the springtime. Everybody just kind of like, okay, it's gonna.
yeah, it was the spring when I
Yeah,
lived. I lived there from like February to like June before I moved back.
yeah. See, and I live the where I live. It's right on this boundary, where a lot of the really heavy storms they hit my area first, so I get to see a lot of stuff. And then like we had I think two tornado warnings in our area within like, and I'm talking about within like a few miles from my house, within like a couple of weeks. And then
That
I actually saw something where my ears popped when I went outside, and I'm like, okay, the pressure changed. I got to get inside right now because that's part of the deal too. Um, but then yeah, we had one, and April and I, my wife, were sitting there watching TV. It was like a Sunday afternoon or something, watching TV. I think we were watching football. And I look outside, it was raining. Look outside, and one of the trees, like in my neighbor's yard, just starts doing this. And I'm like, oh, that's a tornado. We got to go. No sirens, no nothing. And it ended up, the tornado hit the street behind me. And it messed up part of our roof. It messed up our fence. So yeah, I mean, it's crazy. But anyway.
that's crazy. That's like terrifying. So have storms gotten worse in Texas? Because like I've noticed a difference here in like 10 years of be living in Philly. Like we don't have winters anymore, and like the summers are just way more intense than they've used to be. Like,
It's kind of like, when people, when it's like super cold outside and everybody's like, yeah, global warming, yeah, BS,
right,
whatever.
right,
I'm like, okay, this is what it does to it's the peaks and the valleys are more intense and more severe,
right. Yeah,
right?
I feel like global warming is like a misnomer for it. It's just climate change. Like
Right.
that
Well, that's
I
why they said that, that's
yeah, of course. And like I know you mentioned it on your other stream. I'm like, thank fucking God. Like, like climate change doesn't give a fuck what you believe. Like,
right.
it's happening and it's gonna kill all of us unless we do something about this. Like, we're not gonna be able to have petty bullshit arguments about nonsense here until we face this problem. Like, we're like, do you take a shit on the floor in your house? Because like that's proverbially like what we're doing. And like we're just taking more and more shits on outside, like in our or shitting in our house is like what we're doing. We're filling our house with shit.
Well, and that's part of the deal too, right? Is that if all of this UAP activity is real,
Uh-huh.
and our government or a subset of our government has access to it, what are they holding back?
there's two main takeaways to all of this that I can get to, or that pretty much where I'm firmly grounded in. Number one, that we have to stop thinking that we are alphas at the top of the food chain, because we have no basis of comparison. We're kind of somewhere in the middle. Like, we're sentient beings. If you hear the howling, that is my doorbell.
Okay.
If you heard that, because this
I
is what
didn't
I
I
live
didn't
with.
hear it, but
I have no control over this. That, I hate the anthill comparison. Like, oh, we're just an anthill to them. It's like, no, 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 no. Anthills are not building complex machines that are going into space. They have their imperative of like building an anthill, and that's it. And they do what they do. I don't know if they're going any further. Ants have generally peaked of where they go. We have not. Like, the rate of change just in the past 10 years. A good example that I like to give. You ever watch the show The Office?
yeah.
Go back and look at the tech on The Office. It's laughable, of like the big, thick, flat screen monitors and the flip phones and the BlackBerry was new. Like, I love that show, but like that was 2006. Like, it was not that long ago, like 17 years ago. And just think about like how far the rate of change for that is absolutely insane. Like, where are we going to be in a frigging year? So my point is that we got to understand, like, we got to stop with the fucking bullshit of I'm white, you're black, you're Chinese, I'm on the left, you're on the right. Like, all of that needs to go the fuck away. All the little things that divide us up, because we got to look at each other like me and you are having a conversation right now. You have a heart, you have a soul, you have a conscience. So do I. So does everyone else in the chat. Let's start with that. Let's start with that, because there's other beings coming here. Like, they 100% there are. I'm more convinced than ever that there are more higher intelligence beings coming here, probably multiple races of them, not just one of the little gray guys, but there's multiple ones coming here that are not just more technologically advanced than us, definitely more spiritually, or like on a higher level of consciousness of even of what they are that we can't even understand yet. So we got to drop all this shit and be like, okay, there are these higher intelligence beings that are coming here for a reason. We need to kind of learn a little bit from this. Like, we need to, that's where we need to be. So one, absolutely, we got to start looking at each other as human beings, as like global citizens of Earth. Like, we're human beings that are citizens of Earth. And two, the technology that has been sequestered by governments, if like a lot of it, I don't think has been reverse engineered. I think some of it has for like ARVs and whatnot, somewhat, but I think it's so far advanced and so rooted in consciousness of how these machines operate that we can't even replicate them with our material science, because these things are built on like the atomic level. Like, it's like 3D printed on an atomic level, and there's been countless stories of that. But if like, I mean, Tesla was able to use, like, it built coils that were just had energy traveling through the air, and that was in the 1920s when he died. Like, the CIA and the FBI, they weren't even set up yet. It was like Army intelligence or whatever. They snatched everything when he died. Everything that's sequestered away. Like, the Department of Energy has been involved and all this shit. And so if we know how to harness 0 point energy, which I'm like 99.99 whatever sure that we have, that is like, man, shit is going to go crazy. Like, we didn't have to live with fossil fuels. We didn't have to live in like this false kind of scarcity. Like, if you just think about, and I think about this shit all the time. Like, I'll be sitting here painting and I listen to podcasts, just listening to this. Like, um if we weren't relying on fossil fuels, the energy is what powers our civilization. Literally everything is predicated on the energy sector. The coal and oil, those are my cats. Guys, can you please not? I'm trying to be philosophical here. Like,
I'm just glad you have two, because at one
oh,
point one was in the shot and one wasn't, and
oh,
then one
geez.
shows up at the very back, and I'm like,
Is this the Matrix?
am
I
I?
have
Yeah.
two. Yeah, we just got a second one. So I have the big chubby one is Locke, and then the little kitten is Midna. We've only had Midna for about 2 weeks, but they get along so well. Locke is a very good big brother. But yeah, nighttime is crazy time. So I should have given you a forewarning. They're gonna be fucking crazy.
Hey, it's all right.
Anyway,
It's all
if
right.
we had a free energy society where we didn't have to pay for this shit, and like have like, just free energy, this of how much more it would like create of like the power system on some of these systems, on some of these craft. Like, and again, this is me going off on tangents right now.
Go
Are you
for it.
familiar with the case? I believe it was 2006 or 2007. UFO hunters did a case about it, about the disc that was hovering over O'Hare Airport. It was hovering over the tarmac for about 20 minutes. And
Yes.
it was a rainy, cloudy day. And all these people saw it in the control tower. There were planes that saw it. They caught it on radar. There was multiple corroborating systems that caught this thing. It was sitting there hovering, and it took off at such a velocity that it punched a hole through the clouds like a cylinder through this cloud cover. And there were like physicists that they had on that calculated the amount of energy it would take, first of all, for just a hovering object to be sitting stationary hovering for all that time, and then to take off at an incredible speed like that. It's like more than half the output of like the power of the United States it would take to power something to do that. So like the power systems on these systems outpace everything we have by like 1,000,000% or whatever it is. Think about, you have that power system in place, that, and then you just go down the line of like, okay, manufacturing, transportation, of like everything is going to go end on end. Like our entire economic system is vastly going to change. I don't think there'll be a societal collapse like everybody predicts. I think that the super rich are not going to be very happy about this. I mean, I think there still will be rich people, but in the end, when we have this, the base level of like from the dirt poor to like us, of like, the working class or the working poor, whatever you want to call us, is all going to rise with the tide. When we will have a much higher base level of where we're living with these technologies, of what we can glean from these alien technologies, which I think even before we started gathering up all this tech from them, we were already aware. Tesla did this back in the 1910s, 1920s. The first crash, I apparently was even before 47. It was in 33 when the first crash was. If you listen to that guy David Grush, and we'll get to all that
Yeah.
too. But like that's where I come from, and I'm very hopeful about all this. Like I love post-apocalyptic movies. I love Mad Max. I love Fallout games. And I'm like, that shit scares the fucking shit out of me. I hope, like, of how fucked up our society is now, this is the closest we are ever going to get to Fallout Mad Max insanity of like I Am Legend, where everything is completely destroyed. Yeah,
Hopefully.
I really hope that we are not going to get there, that we are not going to have some kind of nuclear apocalypse. I mean, there's a huge connection between these craft and sightings and nukes. So, and there's so much speculation about that, which is a whole other tangent we can get to also,
Which I
with nukes. The
I can't
connection
believe,
of nukes and UFOs
yeah,
is wild.
it's actually, when I was watching Dr. Greer on
Uh-huh.
Sean Ryan, and that, what, 3 hours or however long that was long. But anyway, what was interesting about it was he said that, and I'm like, I can't believe I didn't make that connection. I never
Yeah.
made that connection, and about why Roswell and 47 and all this stuff. And then of course the one thing that he was saying is he said yeah, they keep saying that we, oh, this UFO crashed and they crashed. No, we shot them down. And it made me
Yeah,
go,
that more or less,
okay.
some have crashed, I think. It's so hard to tell what the truth is with that. But I mean, a lot of you got to be careful with Greer, because like he's done a lot of really good stuff. I mean, first of all, his ego is absolutely fucking out of control. He sees himself as like the self-appointed ambassador to the non-human intelligence. Like, dude, you gotta sit the fuck down. Like, I've seen him on so many podcasts of like people that I'm friendly with, just online, of like other podcast guys, and I leave comments. So like we know each other through social media. And they've had Stephen Greer on, and I've seen like how rude he is to them. Like he talks from this place of authority, and he always does in his fucking documentaries. Like, when I briefed the Joint Chiefs of Staff, when I briefed President Bill Clinton, like, dude, but did you really? Like, or did you like corner Senator or like, you know, Chuck Wolseley, who was head of the CIA, like outside of Congress? Because that's more or less what happened. But he has done a lot of really good things. Some of the fucked up shit he did, though, like he has these CE5 events. You know about those? You know, the CE5. He has ones where you could pay like $5,000 and go out in the fucking
Oh,
desert with
right.
him. And I've read reviews from people because I've been interested in this, and people throw all this money down and like it was bullshit. Like he was lying and like faking it the whole time, trying to even do stuff. The craziest thing that he did was he had a pilot, a plane, drop flares in the distance, and they're like, "Oh, look, there they are. They're seeing us." And the pilot, like, I could look and I could find it. The pilot was interviewed and like begrudgingly admitted that Greer paid him to do that. So there's that bullshit. But then on the flip side, if you look at the National Press Club stuff that he's done, he did one in 2001 and he did one in 2013 and he just did one
Yep.
this year. If you look at those people that have come forward, those are like the top of the top, most credible as fuck people, former military, former government, former FAA. There was one guy that they brought forward in like 2002, John Callahan. I fucking love that guy because he's so no bullshit. He was the guy, he was stationed in Anchorage. There was that flight from Japan to Anchorage, and the Japanese pilot said that there was a craft that was maybe almost a mile long. It looked like a glowing walnut, like an orange walnut. Then it paced his plane for like 2 hours. And this 747 was so big, there was a fucking elevator on it. And eventually, like two other craft came out of it. They had it on radar. John Callahan said that like all these people came in and were like, you didn't see anything. They confiscated the radar tapes. They confiscated everything. He kept copies of it, though. He turned it over to Greer. But in like 2001, you could find video of him talking about all this stuff. He's been in plenty of podcasts. So you got to be really careful with Greer. He's done a lot of really, really good stuff, and I'll always give him credit for that. But he's done a lot of like shifty bullshit, and like his ego, I don't like. So there's my
John
spiel with
Callahan,
Greer.
you said.
John Callahan, FAA.
I don't think I've.
I will not even think, and I will throw so many fucking names out there
No,
in
it's cool.
documentaries. Like, if you want people that like to follow, like, do you know who Ross Coulthart is?
I've heard the name before, but
You have to follow him. Follow him right now. He's this Australian journalist. He's become my favorite person.
oh wait, is he the guy that did the News Nation?
He did the News Nation interview with David Grush.
Okay.
He does a podcast called Need to Know with this guy Bryce Zabel. Do you remember the show from the 90s, Dark Skies? It was like pre X-Files.
Yeah.
Only one season. The creator of that show, Bryce Zabel, is his co-host on his podcast Need to Know. Also, Ross wrote a book, In Plain Sight. If you want like a really good overview of the history of UFOs and a lot of the stuff that he's personally uncovered, I couldn't recommend his book more. Like I read it twice.
Okay.
He's fantastic. He started as an ardent skeptic. Like he was an award-winning journalist in Australia. He's been doing this for over 30 years, and he always thought UFOs were absolute bullshit. Didn't believe it at all. Thought it was crap. And he started hearing rumblings about this about 7-8 years ago. And he's like, you know what? I'm going to look into this, and in 6 months, I'm going to blow the lid off this thing. And he thought it was some like black military projects and stuff like that. I mean, so many people have said that. Like Bob Lazar said that in '89 when he first saw the disc. He thought it was us. He didn't know that it was a recovered disc. So the more he dug in, he started talking to like former military in Australia, and there's a lot of joint military bases with like the British and the Americans in Australia. And there's tons and tons and tons of crazy as fuck stories there. So Ross started digging into all this, and he just started seeing how true this is and how deep the cover up goes. It's like you think that like, you know, the American government like couldn't cover this up. Like, you know, everything leaks. It's like this shit's been covered up since like right after Roswell. Like they fucked up in Roswell. They said that there was, you know, oh, a disc crashed, and then they reeled it right back in, and they had Jesse Marcel pose with the fucking weather balloon stuff. And you could just see the look on his face. He just feels like a fucking idiot there. That was in Texas where that happened. That was Fort Worth. They stopped actually. When they took that photo, they were flying the material from Roswell They stopped in Fort Worth on their way to Wright-Patterson Airfield in Dayton, Ohio. They stopped there, and they were going to do it because the press had already gone crazy at this point. What is the chat
Nothing.
going
Just
crazy? Ucho's anus.
yeah.
You got aliens in your ass, dude. You're supposed to be this tough guy from fucking like from Desperado.
Sorry, I saw that. It just made me laugh.
No, it's fine. Come on, man. It's no thing. I'm friends with like Billy and Jay. It's like dick and fart jokes are the pinnacle of fucking comedy.
That's it.
Fart
Yeah.
fart jokes never end.
Well,
You know,
so because like, okay, so I'm like on Reddit and I'm looking at these
you got
videos
to
that
be
people
real
post.
careful with that.
Right. So like, how do you filter through the noise? Like, do you have a
When anybody posts, whenever there's an anonymous post of like, here's a UFO or aliens, and it looks too good to be true, my bullshit meter goes off like, no. We're going to park that in the bullshit. Or maybe it's bullshit until it gets vetted. Until it gets vetted. If something comes out and it looks too good to be true, there's this video that this woman posted with her cell phone pointed out the window of a plane, and you see a disc, like it looks like a sport model disc that Lazar described, flying like sideways as he described that they fly belly up with the way the
Mhm.
gravity emitters are. Zooms right by. How did she know to point the camera like that and keep it steady to wait for this thing to directly go by? How did you know? Like it's too good to be true. As soon as I saw that video going around, like my buddy Brian, which I hope Brian's watching right now, I told him to. He's the one that went to the congressional hearings with me because I was crazy enough. I was in DC for that. We can get to all that too. But like he sent me that. He's like, "What do you think?" I'm like, "This is bullshit." He's like, "Yep, same thing." Like I firmly believe 100% that like these craft, like where I'm at, like these craft are here. They're piloted by non-human intelligence. They're intelligently controlled. They're vastly more sophisticated than us. But whenever there's a video that comes out, especially now with how big and explosive everything is, there's so many people just trying to pull bullshit. There was a video of these three discs flying in like sunset, and then there were these planes chasing them. And I knew it was bullshit for two reasons. One of them, because they put noise sound effects, like this kind of sound effect in, and the discs are always silent. They never make any noise. And the reaction of the guy in the video, because he was just like, "What? Bro, do you see this?" And like that's his only reaction. He's like sort of lackadaisically following the UFOs and going back to the planes. And then it came out that it was from like Microsoft Flight Simulator or something, because the graphics are so good. Like it on face value, it looked real. So you can't, whenever these videos come out, I saw some alien autopsy bullshit today that there were photographs. One of them was a still from a fucking X-Files episode of like the aliens on a table. I'm like, dude, I remember that episode. I have X-Files toys on my wall right here. I love that show. Like, dude, discount all of it until it comes out. Like when the guy's like, "Oh, it's rotating," those three grainy videos that we got, like the gimbal, the go fast, and whatever the other one is, those were around for a little bit. And I'm like, "Oh, those look kind of cool." And then like in 2017, like when around when they leaked, and then it's like the New York Times comes out and says it's real, and then the Pentagon like begrudgingly admits they're real. And then you got Lou Elizondo, who ran the 8-tip program, coming out with Chris Mellon. They're like, "Oh yeah, we like walked these out of the fucking Pentagon, semi-legally, I suppose, through like a loophole, and gave them to Leslie Kean and Ralph Blumenthal so they could write this story." Like that was fucking nuts when that happened in like 2017, because I was kind of on a lull with the UFO shit at a time. And then I saw something online and I'm like, "What?" And I'm like, "You gotta be fucking kidding me." I thought that was gonna be it. I thought everything was gonna come out then. And
well,
then
and
it
that's
sparked my interest, and I've been going nuts since then.
and I think that's the thing that, again, like with Greer, right? I know that
Uh-huh.
he goes off on, I mean, talk about going off on tangents. That guy he's all over the place. But I also think that maybe that's because he's so ingrained in it. He's been ingrained in
Yep.
it for so long. He doesn't think of that as almost like fringe type theories. But
No,
then
absolutely.
but
Absolutely.
but when it comes to that, what you were just talking about, it's, I don't know. I
In what respect of what? I said a lot.
Well,
Someone asked, do I know any videos that you deem credible? Yeah, the gimbal, the go fast, those are credible. There's another one of an object dropping down into the water. Jeremy Corbell got a hold of that one. Say what you will about the guy, he's a little abrasive, but I fucking love Jeremy Corbell. I got to meet him and George Knapp at the
I
hearings.
was
It
actually
was
going to
fun
ask
meeting
you what you thought
Jeremy.
of
I
those
almost
guys.
shit my pants sideways meeting George Knapp, the guy that broke the fucking Bob Lazar story. Like that's what really got me into all this when the Lazar
Wow.
shit in like 89 that came out. I remember hearing about that in like 91 and like seeing Bob Lazar on TV talking about like I was inside the disc. I worked on the propulsion systems. Like I have a print of like the drawing that he did in Jeremy's movie. It's just a print, but it's signed by him. I have it framed on my wall right here. I have the model from like 94, the tester sport model. There's some things that don't add up with Lazar's story, so I don't believe everything about it, and it really sucks to like come to grips with that because it's like once I got into this, like the Bob Lazar story was so ingrained in it that it's like it's part of it, it becomes part of your identity, and you really have to like kind of parse things and not let that happen. But sorry, I'm going off on
No.
tangents. But again, yeah, but Jeremy Corbell does a lot of really great stuff. There was a video also of these drones. It looked like kind of like a pyramidal shape. That one, I don't know. That one's kind of maybe been debunked. There was something about like these UFO type drones that were like swarming these Navy ships in 2019. It was this night vision footage. That one I'm a little iffy about. And again, don't take my word as gospel like I fucking know anything. I could be completely fucking wrong. Like I'm just a guy that's interested in this. I'm a
And
little too
see,
crazy about
but
this
that's a
shit.
really, that to me, when it comes to science, that's a really healthy attitude. You know, I could
You
be
have to
wrong.
be. You
And it's
have to.
like,
Oh, absolutely. I will be the first one to admit if I'm wrong about something. Like, well, fuck, I was wrong. Like, my friend Brian pointed out some things about Lazar's story, and I was like, I and I had to think about like it made me upset to hear it, and then I immediately had to like cycle back and think about why did that make me upset? Because it challenges my beliefs. It challenges my beliefs that I've had since I was 11 years old for literally 30 years. Okay, I need to reevaluate this of what the truth is. If Lazar is lying about certain things, I want to know that. Like I just want to know what the truth is. When I oh, side note, also another thing I do, I play bass in the band Rex Viper too, with the Cinemasker with James Rolfe, you know, angry video game nerd.
yeah,
Anyway, so they did a short-lived Cinemasker podcast, and they did some Halloween episodes. So I was at band practice one day, and James was just like, "Oh, we're doing some Halloween ones. Like you're always ranting about fucking aliens at band practice. Like, why don't you just come on the podcast and just get it all out?" I'm like, okay. So I did one episode with them, and like Kieran was there and he was drinking, of course, and he turned it into like a wrestling promo of like wanting to beat the shit out of the aliens. But like the point I was trying to make on that was like I could be wrong about everything that I'm saying. Like don't take it all as fact of like I know everything or what I'm talking about. I just research this all the time. I just want to know what the fucking truth is. That's all. I think that's what we all want to know.
yeah.
What is the truth? We can all handle it. Like it's gonna be like everyone. The new phrase is ontological shock, is in like a shock to your being, like your very being of like who you are. I think we fucking need that as humanity, first of all. But like we'll live, we'll survive.
I've been through that. I,
Yeah.
yeah, I don't have any problem with that. What I'm worried
No.
about is, you know, I mean, I guess in a weird way, the sociological effects, right? You know,
Like what?
religious groups.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's going to be it will be a shakeup, but like you said earlier, I think the biggest shakeup was going to be in the way in industry, right?
Yeah.
And I say
Absolutely.
the the energy providers of whether it's gas, whether it's electric, all that stuff will be
Even
shaken up.
nuclear.
You've got, I think, pharmaceuticals will change quite a
Oh,
bit,
absolutely.
and
Healthcare.
that's one
Everything
of
will
those
vastly
things.
change.
Yeah, that's one of those things that really hits home with me, because my mom died of an immunodeficient disease. You know what I mean? Like what technology could have helped her? Now we've come a long way in a very short time, just like we have with everything. But how far could we have gotten?
How
You know what I
far
mean?
could we have been? That's
Yeah.
going to be the thing that people are going to flip the fuck out on, rightfully so, being like, we didn't have to suffer for X, Y, and Z. And then people are going to start going down of like, well, wait a minute. If this is true, then this, then this, then this, and this of stuff that we can't even think of yet, of like that we didn't have to live this way for the past 80, 90 years. We didn't have to live this way, the way the path that our human civilization took. Like, I mean, you think about um all the alien being interactions and stuff. One of the ones that I find to be the most credible. Do you know the Rua Zimbabwe story, the Ariel School in Zimbabwe from 1994? James Fox talked about this.
Yeah.
There's another one. He did the documentary called The Phenomenon,
Yep.
and then there's the one called the Ariel Phenomenon. That's a different one. This guy Randall Nickerson did that one. He actually was at the hearings. I got to meet him. He was really really solid guy. But like in a nutshell, what happened was there were these freaking craft that came down. They were spotted over Zimbabwe a few days before. They were like these discs, and they sort of landed in like this grove by these trees on this schoolyard. And there were like 200 kids that saw it, from ranging from ages from like, I don't know, 7, 8 years old the way to about 13, from like all walks of life. And like teachers saw it too. And like these kids, like you hear them giving testimony, and like to this one guy who was giving the testimony, like John Mack, I don't know if you know who he is. He was a head of Harvard psychology who was looking into the alien abduction thing in the 90s. He was killed in 2004, and it was pretty sus of how he was killed. A drunk driver hit him in London in the middle of the night. So who knows about that? That seems kind of suspect. But anyway, he had found that there were a lot of people that were talking about alien abductions, and he found like night terrors or something else, or just some kind of psychological deficiency. But he said overwhelmingly cases that he was looking at, uh, he couldn't prove that it was alien abductions, but there was nothing else that he could find in this person's psychological history to disprove it. I mean, they did have markings on their bodies, and sometimes people did have strange metal implants of tiny little pieces of metal that had weird kind of, it was weird the way the metal was, fused together and stuff like that. It's strange. But John Mack questioned these kids one at a time. You could find the videos, you could find the old VHS tapes of John Mack interviewing these kids one at a time, and they all tell the same story, like, but slightly different, as kids would. And he has them draw what they saw, the beings, the craft, all the same. And some of the ones of talking about uh moment of contact. Yes. Well, no, moment of contact is about the one in Brazil, the Varginha case.
Virginia.
James
Yeah.
Fox did that one. If James Fox would have been at the hearings, he would have been another one. My head would have exploded meeting him. Like, I've been following him since like the early 2000s, when he did Out of the Blue, and then he did I forgot the other one that was about the Phoenix lights in 97. I forgot. But anyway, so getting back to the Rua Zimbabwe case, like these kids were interviewed back then, and then now you see them like they're in their 30s and 40s, like around our age, and all of them say like that was fundamentally like the most life-changing event of their life, of like like how it hit them in their core, like something they can't even explain. This one woman she became like a human rights lawyer, and she said specifically because of this event, she was a meter from one of these beings. It was a gray, and it was in like a skin tight, almost black diving suit. A meter away is 3 feet. That's the length of your fucking arm. She could have put her hand out and touched this being. She was standing there, and she said that there were a bunch of kids that were close, kept saying that they were getting all of this information in their head, and they could tell it was from these beings, just showing them like ecological devastation, and just telling us that like our technology is wrong. We're on the wrong path of technology. And I don't understand. There's a lot of stories of alien beings and craft coming down in schoolyards. There's multiple ones. There's one in South Korea. There was one in the 60s in Australia. I think there was one in the United States too. I can't think of it though. But I don't know what the correlation is between that. It just is a thing. But that Rua Zimbabwe case, man, like I remember hearing rumblings about it years ago. And then when James Fox put out The Phenomenon in 2020, and that was the whole end section, that was the first time I really dug into it. And then I found the John Mack tapes. Man, that was like, I couldn't fucking believe it. I was blown away by that because I always like, when it comes to alien abductions, I was always like an alien being. I was always on the fence about that, how I feel about it. And there's a real truth to it of alien contact and then definitely alien abductions. Like, pretty sure that's a real thing that for a while one of these races was snatching us up for our reproductive for sperm or eggs. They were doing something. I mean, you hear all those. Again, I'm going off on a tangent, I'm sorry. Like,
No.
you hear all these stories about like how many stories do you have to hear about some, like, and across all cultures, all religions, all nations, all different races, of these women saying, I was taken out of my bed in the middle of the night. There were little gray beings around my bed. Suddenly I'm on a table. They're taking Ova out. I had these experiences. I have a daughter. My daughter has these experiences. My grandma or my mom had these experiences going way back generationally. And then sometimes when they're taking on the craft, these aliens show them half human, half alien babies, which goes to show, like, okay, how the hell are our genetics compatible with theirs? Are we somehow a product of them? Like, that's a whole other rabbit hole that, like, to even go down. Like, we could have a 3-hour discussion just about that. But like, how many stories do you have to hear over and over and over again from all these people that don't know each other, that probably have never heard this before, that have had these experiences throughout their life? I talked to someone. I was out with my friend's birthday. It was James. It was Rolf, for Rolf's birthday. Me and the whole band were out, and Rolf's cousin was there, and he said to me, he's like, "Oh, talk to my cousin's wife. She's an abductee." And I was like, "Oh, really?" So I ended up talking, and she was very open, and she's just like, "I've never had like ova taken. Like, I've been on the craft multiple times, and I've seen grays, and there's other weird beings on there too that are like grays, but they're taller and they look more human." She's like, "My mom's had experiences, my grandma's had experience." She's like, "I had one like 4 months ago," and her husband, James's cousin, was like, "Fucking weird, man. She wakes up and she tells me all this crazy shit." It's like, she's completely normal otherwise, but it's something that happens. So I've met people firsthand that talk about this shit. It's crazy. They
Yeah,
can't
see
all
that,
be lying. They can't all be making it up.
right. I mean, it's the abductions are one of those things where,
Wait, Greer says alien abductions were staged. Please stop listening to Stephen Greer about everything. There might be some of them that were. There might be.
well, I mean, even in that last and I can't remember the name of the meeting that he had earlier this year with all the guys.
That press club thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One of the guy sitting to his left talked about an experience where he was taken up, him and his wife were taken up into
Into
a
a craft.
craft. So it's kind
Uh-huh.
of, I mean, it's not all it, but that's the thing. It's like there's so much noise, you never know
Right.
if it's, I mean, if
The
it's real or not. I mean, it's such a
Yeah,
weird
I
thing.
mean, the way I deal with all the noise is that whenever videos come out, I immediately think it's bullshit. Don't believe anything with that. If it comes from like an official source, you have somebody with the credibility of like David Grush coming forward, and we can speak about him. Like, sorry, burping. That guy's the real fucking deal. That guy is the real fucking deal, and he is the first one of many to come forward. Of many. Like, I was talking to a lot. Like, there were a couple of congressmen that were there. Like, even though I don't agree with his politics, Tim Burchett. I shook his hand, and I was like, "Thank you for everything that you're doing." And I asked him, like, because there were only 3 witnesses. I'm like, "What happened to the other 3?" And he looked me dead in the eye. He's like, "Fucking DOD, man." And he's like, "Fucking DOD got to him, fucking Pentagon," and walked away. Like, congressman saying that, "Fucking DOD, fucking Pentagon," like as he's walking down the hallway, shaking my hand.
Well, it's
Said
weird
that.
that you say that because there was again, this was on Reddit,
Uh-huh.
some congressman talking about how there are to be no more hearings because it's bad for the DOD is what he said.
Oh yeah. I'm honestly surprised that the pushback took as long as it did. I honestly thought it was going to be the same day as the hearings, because it's always like one step forward, one step back. I think that was, the hearings were like 10 steps forward, and now they're backtracking and saying that like, oh, there's not going to be any more hearings because it's bad for the DOD. Well, of fucking course it's bad for the DOD. They're saying that you're fucking lying and that there's no purpose to what you do, and that you guys you're the beginning of the one of the many roots of the problem, which you are. You know, you're not for the people, you're for your own fucking interests.
Here it is.
But of
The
what is, oh, no more UAP hearings because Mike Turner, yeah, you know what? Again, don't listen to that. That's more noise. There was stuff that came out about David Grush that talked about his PTSD and his past alcoholism and stuff. That's noise. That is noise trying to discredit him. Keep your eye on the target. My buddy Brian called me about that. He's like, how do you feel about this? I'm like, dude, the news cycle is going to change. In 3 days, no one's going to be talking about this. Trump is facing like his 4th indictment. Everyone's going to be talking about that. Like, you know, which is just insane that he has like 90 felony charges on him. It's like, how is that possible?
Yeah, I don't know.
It's like a comedy at this point. But like, point is like, dude, they're just trying to discredit him. That article that came out of The Intercept was like, that guy was tipped off of like where to specifically look, what to specifically FOIA from these like from some hospital or whatever, from some police department, to get this information, just to put it out and be like, maybe you should look here if you want to discredit this. Sorry, one of my kitten is going nuts.
No.
Everyone say hi to Midna.
It's all good. It's all good.
Yeah, like, so that's the pushback. That's what has been going on. Like they were even saying beforehand when they were doing that hearing, like Burchett had said like they were going to be put in a room that was like under construction, and they didn't want to have it open to the public. And then they didn't even want to have them swear under oath. Jeremy Corbell actually did a lot of stuff behind the scenes. Like, as much as people hate on Jeremy, that dude works his ass off on getting a lot of shit done. Like, I know he could be a little abrasive,
And I get it. Well, I think both really all of them, James Fox, Greer, they all seem to like to talk, and
the spotlight. Yeah,
you know what I mean? They're enjoying that part of it, but that doesn't mean that they're wrong. You know what I mean?
No, they are enjoying it, and in a sense, I suppose they should, because they've worked so hard to be doing this. But don't make it about yourself. Greer makes it about himself so much, and that's what I don't like. Jeremy likes the limelight, fine, whatever. James Fox, I feel like, yeah, but he's just, whenever he's on a podcast or anything, I get excited just to hear him talk, because he's like, you know, I'm not the biggest Joe Rogan fan, but I'll watch, like, okay, James Fox is on, I'm gonna watch that. Like, I just want to hear what he has to say.
I didn't even know he's been on Rogan before.
Dude, he went on Rogan. He started crying on there, like saying, he's like, I am trying to be a voice for, like, you know, the whole Virginia Brazil case of like all these people that are like, they are telling the fucking truth. Like, I know it's the truth. I've seen evidence that I can't present because it's like, you know, because of some legal bullshit I can't. He's like, and I have to be a voice for them. And I've been doing this for 12 years. It's like so ingrained in my heart. So like it's something. It's something. Like James Fox, yeah, a little bit, but I fucking love that guy, man.
Yeah, I've watched a lot of both of their movies actually. But maybe later on we can talk about like maybe some things that I may not know about that I should check out. You know what I mean? Stuff like that.
Oh, absolutely. Like, first and foremost, I'm telling everybody in the chat, anybody that wants to listen, I will scream about it. Go follow Ross Coulthart. He is the number one source that you want to follow for any breaking shit. He is the one that did the News Nation interview with David Grush. He is no bullshit. He is not going to bring anything forward. If he did, he'd be the first one to apologize and retract it, because he has said stuff in the past. It's like, this wasn't exactly accurate, and let me correct the record. But like, they vetted Grush. He vetted Grush for over a friggin' year. Same thing with the journalists Leslie Kane and Ralph Blumenthal. They're independent journalists. They generally write for the New York Times. They're the ones that got that New York 2017 story out. They wanted the Grush story to be in the New York Times. New York Times didn't want to touch it. Washington Post gave them the runaround. They didn't want to touch it. That's why it came out on, shit, I can't remember what it came out on. It wasn't News Nation. There was another news source where the article came out, and then News Nation aired the interview with, they were like the biggest news source that would air the interview with Grush. Like CBS, NBC, all of them, they're like, we're not touching this. We can't. So they did their due diligence to make sure Grush was saying who the hell he is. Like the inspector general, like the IG, the ICIG something, I've something inspector general. Like again, this is me like spouting all these names and anagrams and shit. I've learned so much just from all of this, like how national security works. It's crazy. The ICIG is pretty much the oversight for the intelligence community, like specifically the DOD, for mishandling of funds, corruption, misappropriation. And it's like, motherfucker, you got your fucking hands full. You're going to need your own department to like dig into this. Jesus Christ. And he vetted Grush's claims and he labeled it as like very credible and very urgent of the information that he was brought to him. The former ICIG is a lawyer, is retired, and is now acting as David Grush's personal lawyer. He was actually at the hearing sitting behind him, whispering in his ear whenever any of the congressmen asked questions, telling him what he like should and should not say, because his ass is on the line. Grush's ass is on the line. If he says one thing that's wrong, like the CIA is just waiting to like throw him in jail for him to like overstep his bounds and mention something about a certain crash or something that he can't talk about, something that's like national defense related. But yeah, the inspector general said that there was like said that urgent and credible is what he said, and like a lot of people have been like, well, oh well, Grush didn't bring anything forward that was like firsthand evidence. It was just like, oh, I talked to a guy that was in the programs and stuff like that. Like, yeah, well, that's true, and I understand on face value, everybody wants to see the bodies. They want to see the UFOs. Come on, we all want to fucking see that. He had all this information that he was able to bring forward to these people that vetted it as like, this is the most credible and urgent shit we need to get to right now. Like when I was sitting there in the hearings, I had to sit in the overflow room, but like I'm sitting there listening to this guy, and he's saying everything from like, I could tell you every aerospace corporation that's involved. I can tell you the names of the programs that are like Russian doll hidden in the DOD and the Pentagon. I can tell you the people that are involved directly in this. I can tell you the locations of where the shit's where it's hidden, like where to look, and he even said that he has a hostile and a cooperative witness list of people that to go after if they're going to do further hearings to fucking subpoena, which is crazy.
I love it.
Isn't that nuts?
I love it.
And like Tim Burchett asked some really poignant questions, like straight up, like, is this non-human intelligence? Is it this? And he has said, like, I've been listened to him a lot. Like, I only knew about him from his bullshit politics, which, sorry if anybody agrees with him in the chat. I don't. We're not going to get on that. So I didn't like him at first, but then he started going around and he started doing all of these podcasts that I listened to, like another one called like That UFO Podcast. This guy, Andy from Scotland, does that. He was on with him. There were, I think the Good Trouble Show, Matt Ford might have had him on. I don't know. Anyway, Burchett did the rounds on the big UFO podcast circuits. And I listened to this guy talk for hours. He's not friggin' stupid at all. He's a really smart guy. He knows like the stakes of all this. And mainly what he's mad about is like how Congress has just been left in the friggin' dark about all this. All Congress was like sitting there looking at like, like, first of all, this is like the first thing that's completely nonpartisan in like 10 years, where the Democrats and Republicans are not screaming at each other. Like literally at that hearing, you had AOC on one side and Matt Gaetz on the other. You can't be more diametrically opposed than those two. They're sitting there agreeing with each other about all of this stuff. Like, this is amazing that everybody's agreeing with this. So like Burchett is not stupid at all. He even said in one interview that like, well, first of all, he said, he's like, my dad was like an attorney or something, and he's like, I've never in Congress, I never ask questions unless I already know the answer. And thinking back and listening to the questions that he was asking was like, well, God fucking damn, what kind of information was he shown and what was he given to be asking those kind of pointed questions of like, is this non-human intelligence? Like, okay, it is. Jesus Christ. So I don't know where I was going with that.
Well,
but anyway, he knows these guys. They have been shown a lot in Congress. in like compartmentalized skiffs, the secure access, whatever it stands for. They have been shown a lot of classified shit. Matt Gaetz, actually, I don't know if did you hear the story that he told when he went down to Eglin Air Force Base, and they first of all he got blocked, but then
Yep.
he talked to that pilot
Yep.
and what that pilot showed him of those that
Well,
diamond shaped
I
formation.
just I heard the overall, like the high level of what happened. I didn't hear what he actually got to see
Okay,
everything.
yeah, you got to watch this. I couldn't believe this because, like, first of all, like the only thing I know about Matt Gaetz, it's like I always hear him yelling the Trump rhetoric and the loud, boisterous bullshit, which in itself is noise. A lot of those people don't believe that craziness, but the sincerity in Matt Gaetz's voice and how he was talking, I never heard this from this guy. And like I follow politics, so I see a lot of this shit. He was talking about how there was a flight exercise over the Gulf of Mexico. Eglin Air Force Base is like on the coast in Florida, and there's one pilot. They're doing this, and he sees a diamond shaped formation of like orbs or discs. Anyway, they're flying in a diamond formation. He gets close to this thing. He says there's no rivets, no seams, no nothing, no propulsion. Like all the stories you hear, they're just fucking solid objects, and they're defying gravity, doing all the UFO shit. That his weapon systems went down, his radar went down, his like the FLIR camera on the front, infrared, everything went down. He got a photo of this. Either it was he had to manually move the camera on his plane, or he took it with like his fucking iPhone to get this picture. But Matt Gaetz had said he saw this photograph and he's like, I forgot exactly how he worded it, but it was like, I couldn't think of any earthly explanation to define what I was looking at in this photo. And to hear that from like, one of these blustering politicians, like that's something. Like whatever he was shown. And I think he wasn't even supposed to talk about that. I think because he's part of some other like military, whatever secret shit he's been read into. So he has other clearances. So I honestly think he wasn't supposed to talk about that when he did, but he said it in Congress, and we're all sitting there. I'm sitting in a room with like hundreds of other people that are just as fucking crazy as I am. We're all looking at each other like this is fucking insane.
See, and that's what
This
I
is
couldn't understand is I'm sitting, because I watched it live. I watched the whole thing, and I'm sitting there losing my mind. I am like, I cannot believe. I mean, it's one thing to hear it in a documentary. It's one thing to hear it in an interview. It's another to
yep,
hear it, in front of Congress after they've been sworn in. Yes,
under oath.
they could still be lying, but that's beside the point.
They're not
It's a
lying.
different. It's just different hearing
Yes.
this information in that context. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I
Saying it
think
under oath. Yeah.
so. Yeah, something you said though, it made a lot of sense, and it's one of those things where
I say a
again,
lot.
I don't talk.
Anyway.
I don't talk politics at all. Like
Uh-huh.
I can't stand all of it.
It's not it we have to because it gets in our lives so much, but it's like it's just gotten so unhealthy. It's like our society is so unhealthy right now of everything that we're input, and just that's just another
Well, it's on off.
aspect of it.
It's this very digital. You're either with me or you're the devil. That's basically the way that politics has gotten. And I just
Yeah.
that the gray area is gone. But I think it's what you said is it's important to remember. No matter who it is, we've got to look at these people as people. There's going to be things that we agree with them on. There's going to be things that we don't agree on. Like you and me, we love this UFO stuff. We love talking about it. But I guarantee you, there's something in the world that we disagree on. And that's
And
okay.
as we should.
Yeah,
We
that's
should. I
okay.
don't want to be friends with someone that agrees with me on everything. Like I like when someone comes at me with an informed opinion about politics or whatever. Perfect example. Fucking Jay, Game Chasers Jay. Me and him always for some reason end up talking politics. And like, he's on the right, I'm on the left. But he's not like I'm not talking from like just talking points and repeating shit that I hear. I'm like make informed decisions about this. He does the same thing. And that's why I very much love talking to him about this kind of stuff. Cause like, yeah, he's talking about dicks and farts and everything like that. Like Jay, I love that dude. He's a really fucking smart guy. I always enjoy sitting and talking with him about these things because he will explain his point and I'll explain mine, and we'll understand where each other is coming from. We essentially want the same things. We come at it from very different angles. At the end of the day, everybody just wants safety and security for themselves and like their family and doesn't want to hurt anybody else. That's essentially what we want when it comes down to this. We all don't want to be fighting for table scraps of money over, like, you know, the super rich that control everything. We don't want that. We want a more fair and equitable system where we can just fucking live, you know? Like, I think that's what we can all agree on that we want. Like, just let us fucking breathe for a second, my God. And let us not worry about, you know, how we're going to pay rent or the mortgage next month or a fucking food bill or like taking care of our kids or whatever, you know, even if you don't have kids, just taking care of your family. Like, that's all we want. And so, like, that's why I very much enjoy talking with him, because
Yeah.
being him, we will disagree on a lot of things, but he'll explain his point as to why he says this, and I'll explain my point as to why I say it, and we'll understand where each other's coming from. And there needs to be a lot more discourse of that. I have friends that repeat the right-wing shit, and they're just repeating like the nonsense right-wing talking points. And I'm like, you're a fucking dumbass. I'm not even going to engage with you on this because you're just a dum-dum. You don't even know how stupid you are. Like, I'm pointing at a few people right now about that. So,
Well, and I've
but
always been,
like,
I mean, just like with UFOs, with ghosts, with
uh,
anything, and politics. I'm a skeptic on all counts. And
everyone
it's,
has an agenda.
yeah,
Everyone has their own agenda.
right. And it's just, it's hard for me to talk about that stuff, but it's something that I think is really important that, you know, I mean, if anybody comes away with anything, hopefully, you know, hey, maybe this person that I don't agree with, maybe they have some good points, or maybe
Right.
they have,
Maybe
you know
you
what I
can
mean?
get something from it. Side note also, Christian VS versus, you're the guy that got Demon's Crest on Game Chasers. Yes, yes, I am. I still have I still have it. That's one of my Super Nintendo
Yeah,
games
I
I
actually
will
saw that earlier,
preserve.
and we were in the middle of something, so it was, you
Uh-huh.
know, but hey,
I was still drinking at that point. We were all so fucking drunk when we filmed that. We were day drinking the whole time at too many games.
man, I
I
can't,
had a
well,
handle, like, I would never drink whiskey. I had a handle of whiskey behind the table for some fucking reason. And my table was right next to like the retroware, whatever guys. So it was like Billy and Jay, and like when Bill, Alpha Omega San would come, and like 8-Bit Eric and like all of them. And I don't know, it was like 2015 or so. So it was like too many games wasn't that big. And we were just like day drinking, just drinking the whole time. So by the time we filmed that segment of like going to my friend Chris, actually, when we did that, my friend DJ Cutman, uh, he told me he had all those games, and I think I said in the video, I'm like, he doesn't want the camera in his face, but let's put the camera in his face. And then, like, we did that, and Billy was just like, I like this idea. I'm like, yeah, he's got all these choice Super Nintendo games back there. He's being stingy about them. Let's go get them. Because I helped him price those out. He was asking me like a week before. He's like, help me price these out. And I was looking. I'm like, I picked up Demon's Crest. I'm like, if you fucking sell this, I'm gonna be pissed.
yeah, that's, it's weird too, going out with them on this stuff. It's different. It's a different vibe than some of those earlier Game Chasers episodes, but
Oh, I'm sure. Well,
it's
like, it's so much harder to find games now.
well, that, but I mean, it's, they're a little more tame. And I don't know, and that might be me. I
Really?
don't know. Maybe they're doing that for my benefit, but I'm a, I mean, other than my vaping, I'm pretty straight edge, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, I don't drink or anything like that, so maybe
Yeah,
that's
I have my
why. But
Liquid Death here. This is like, I drink these, and like,
yeah,
you know, I have another bubbly since I talk a lot, and
oh yeah,
I
man,
need to have,
hydration is important.
I need to hydrate. It's very important. We're
But
actually
also, I just want to mention, once again, we've only already been talking almost an hour and a half, which is crazy. But I'm not ignoring chat. Just know that I know that I'm usually very, very attentive with chat, but since we're having this conversation, it's a different vibe. It's a different thing. So
Yeah,
just know,
you really get involved. Yeah, Dunning Kruger is rough, makes life hard. Yeah, it is. It's the dumb people that think they're smart when in actuality they're complete fucking morons, not even aware. That's a big problem in society. I've found people have no self-awareness at all. They don't realize how much of a fucking idiot they are. They have no awareness. Like, I'm aware, like, I will just rant and rant and rant and talk, but like I'm aware of it at least. Like people have no self-awareness
It's
at all.
it's weird too.
I don't
It's like I've
understand how
said it.
people like George Carlin said it best. Like, think of the average person and think of how fucking stupid they are, and then realize half of them are even more fucking stupid than they are. Like, man, like I wish George Carlin was still alive. Like, I miss that man. Like, he has made so many of like my life, like the way I look at life. Like, he's
Yeah.
one of those people that is like, yes,
And see,
listen to
I'm
those George Carlin records when I was 12.
yeah, I'm a Bill Hicks fan. So,
Oh yeah,
and
yeah. He's another
he's the
no
same way.
bullshit. Yeah,
I mean, he'd be, let's see, he'd be like 61 or something like, right? I mean,
yeah. He
think
was
about all
young
the
when he
things that
died.
he missed. He missed 9/11. He missed, I
Yeah.
mean, I would have liked to have heard his take on a lot of different things, you
Oh
know,
yeah. Oh, absolutely.
but, yeah, let's see.
If you have other questions or anything you want to get to, like
Well, I mean, it's
specifically,
funny
like
because we've hit, and sometimes just because of the way that things have
of
progressed, you've
course, the way
hit
the
some of my
conversation
things.
flows.
Like we've already talked about Jeremy Corbell, James Fox, Stephen Greer. Um, okay, let me ask you this: Why release? Why is it all happening now? Other than the law that
Uh-huh.
was passed that's granting these whistleblowers these protections, do you think there's something else there that is? Why is it feels like there's this wave of let's get this out.
Yes. There's been so much going on in the background. Another fantastic person you got to listen to, Richard Dolan. Chat, go subscribe to him. Richard Dolan. He's a fucking boomer. He refers to his YouTube videos as programs. It's like a PBS thing, Channel 13 from the 90s. Like, I've been following Dolan since like 95, like when I saw him on like these documentaries, and he's still doing this shit. I love that guy. He did UFOs in the National Security State. He's written like 3 volumes. I've read the first 2. He also did another book with called AD After Disclosure, and it was all like a hypothetical of how disclosure would happen and the ramifications of everything like that. He actually wrote that with the guy Bryce Zabel, who's cycling back, does the podcast with Ross Coulthart. Need to know. They wrote that in like 2011, and I've been meaning to reread that. I read it back then, so like these are people. These are the people you need to listen to. Like Richard Dolan has been so plugged into this, and he has been saying for years, and this is not me talking. This is him talking, that within the intelligence community, apparently, there's been like an internal, like factional struggle about us, that there are people within the DOD and the Pentagon that want this out and have been struggling to get this out. And then there's other factions, who knows, they're bought and paid for by these aerospace corporations. And I don't know what their stake is in this. I don't know anything more than any details, but that's the way it seems. Like, this one side got these congressional hearings to go through. I mean, with help from all these other people, and now you're getting all this pushback. Like, case in point, that Intercept article that came out trying to smear David Grush about his alcoholism. And besides, another good point that was brought up, I forgot who said this, that was meant as a warning for any other whistleblower to come forward, that it's like, if you come forward, your past is fucking fair game. We'll go after it and we'll smear the shit out of you. Everything you don't want people to know about, we'll blow it up and make it public if you come forward and talk about this to try to scare people off. So where was I going with that? What were we talking about?
Well, I
Where
sorry,
did
I
where
just
did that lead to? Oh, of what is going on? Why is this
yeah.
coming out now? That there has been, like, it seems like a really big push behind the scenes for this to happen for years. Especially like that there's been such a groundswell, like grassroots community online of like a UFO community. It's still, like a fraction of a percentage of the population, like me and you, that follow this and are into this. The average person, think of how many friends you have that are like completely unaware of this. Like, I posted pictures that I was at this congressional hearing and people had no idea what was going on. They thought that like I knew someone in government to get in. I'm like, no, this is open to the public. Anybody could go. Like, so a big thing that there was push for, that when Hillary Clinton was running in 2016, when the DNC servers were hacked and all the emails were leaked. Did you know about all the emails that came out? holy shit. Okay, go back and look at those. Essentially, Hillary wanted to disclose a lot of this stuff if she got elected. There's stuff in emails like John Podesta, who was her campaign manager, who was I think he was Secretary of State, something. I forgot what he was in Obama. Something he was high up in the Obama administration, and he was helping Hillary. And there's like email threads where you could see John fucking Podesta and Hillary Clinton and like these high up generals and like admirals and shit, and fucking Tom DeLonge from Blink 182. He's not a joke, by the way. I mean, I love Blink 182, but Tom with To the Stars, Tom has been talking about this shit since the early 2000s, man. And like, he's always been right. He's always been right about this stuff. I remember seeing a video in like '03 of him talking about how like all these aerospace corporations have all this shit locked up. It's not the government, it's the aerospace corporations. And I remember being like, oh yeah, I've heard this in documentaries too, that it's like it's not this monolithic government. It's these multi-billion dollar aerospace companies that are like independent, that have no government oversight. They do whatever they want. But that they were working together, like To the Stars Academy with the Clinton campaign and some of these military people that knew about the compartmentalized programs, to get this out, to funnel it into the Clinton campaign, to her, to give her enough information to come out and be the president that says, people of the United States, people of Earth, we're not alone. And here's the irrefutable evidence, roll out the UFO and the fucking bodies, if some of them are even still alive.
I
Which
did
they're
not
rumored
know
that
any of
some of the
that.
NHIs are still alive. You
I
don't believe
didn't.
that?
No, I didn't know any of that.
Really?
Yeah,
Isn't that wild? Aren't
that
you
is.
glad I came on here?
Yeah.
Dude, look it up. I'm not bullshitting you. You could find those emails. They came out with the DNC, with a Russian hack of the DNC servers. They posted all of the Clinton emails. The majority of them are not about UFO stuff. It's about, campaign, whatever, funding, finance, whatever, boring bullshit. But then there was all this UFO crap in there. Like, what the fuck? And they referred them to as UAPs. Even I remember Hillary was on with like one of the late night comedian guys, and I didn't watch it when it was first on, but I saw that when in like 2014, 2015, I think it was Jimmy Kimmel, and he's like, what about the aliens? And she's like, and then UFOs, and she's like, Jimmy, it's not UFO anymore, it's UAP. And nobody was calling them UAPs back then, unidentified aerial phenomena. So you look back, you're like, all right, she was definitely told shit. Her husband, Bill Clinton, was trying to get stuff out in the 90s. He said he was completely stonewalled of trying to get stuff out. He wanted to disclose Roswell. They wouldn't give him anything. He called up like the Department of Defense and they told him to go fuck off. They're like, you don't need to know, sir. The president's like not read into things. Apparently,
Right.
Obama was told some stuff like after he's out of office. Of all things, I can't believe it. Trump was fucking told about stuff. He was told about Roswell. I'm honestly surprised he hasn't yelled about it.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know how he's kept his mouth shut. He yells about everything
I
else.
know. I know. The guy can't
Yeah.
keep his mouth shut. I mean,
No, but like,
whether you're a fan of what he's done or not, there are
yeah.
still even the biggest supporters are going, dude, shut up. Stop
Yeah,
it.
exactly. Like, stop talking. You're incriminating yourself.
Yeah.
Like, you're admitting you stole these documents. Like, he doesn't keep his mouth shut. Like, I don't understand how he hasn't blabbed to like someone at like the fucking buffet line at one of his like
Right.
golf resorts, talking about, because one of his sons, I think it was Don Jr., did an interview with him and asked him about Roswell, and Trump was just like, oh, there's something interesting. There's something there really is. And like, he was told stuff. I think he was told that there's a non-human intelligence coming here that's been interacting with us for all of humanity, and it's been ramping up in the past 80, 90 years for God knows why. I mean, I'm sure the nukes is one of them. There's a lot of speculation as to why.
So
I
you
mean,
do
I
you
don't
think
know.
so I mean, do you believe that they've been around since the beginning of humans?
I believe they've been coming here since before we were ever on the planet. I think they have. I could be completely wrong about that, but I've just heard a lot of stuff about that like, just so many things throughout the years of like, that these beings, these civilizations are thousands, if not millions of years old. How like Bob Lazar had said, um, you watch the interview he did with Rogan, because like the the movie he did, like Area 51, UFOs, whatever, that Jeremy Corbell did, which I actually saw, it was recommended to me on YouTube. It's free to watch on there, so go watch that. But listen to the interview he did on Rogan. He said that the sport model craft he worked on, he surmised or saw in like a document that it was from an archaeological dig. That's where this was found. It sounds like a Spielberg movie, and that's where some of these other craft were found because of this. And they thought this thing was like 10,000 years old or something crazy like that. And like you even think back to like the human history of 10,000 years, we don't even know really about like that. Like if you go back to like 8,000 or so BC, like the first rise of civilizations in like, Mesopotamia, like the Sumerians and all that,
Right.
the history is kind of spotty even then. Like, because I've listened to like archaeologists and like archaeology podcasts and stuff talking about this too. Like before that, we really don't know a lot about stuff. So like, I mean, you hear about like the theory of like what Atlantis might have been, like that possibly could have been some other vastly intelligent human race or society that rose up, and then something happened. There was a cataclysm, and it happened so long before, eons and eons and eons before all of this, that historical record was destroyed from it. Who knows
Well, and
what that was? We just don't know. And I mean, what Lazar had even said, and a whole bunch of other people, and this is where like shit gets really wild too. And this is me saying this, that like there he saw some kind of record saying that like that whatever NHIs, like be it the Greys or whoever they were, have done genetic corrections to us throughout human evolution. Like 62 different genetic corrections were done to us. And other people that have said things like Luis Elizondo, when he was doing all his podcast stuff, he was, who he is? He was head of
mhm.
the ATIP program. I got to meet him actually at the hearings. He was like, he said he said he was being sub rosa, which meant like incognito. He didn't want people to know. I'm like, oh, okay, like, well, we're not going to make a big deal. And I just shook his hand and thanked him. And I got a picture real quick with him. But he had said on a number of podcasts, actually, a great, I'll get to the one that he was on that you should listen to. He had said that like essentially what our human history of like what we've been taught is not exactly accurate of like what we've been told of like how we evolved, and like our past is not exactly accurate of what. And I that fascinates me. Like I don't know anything about that, but that seems very plausible. He was on the podcast, if you've ever heard of it, Theories of Everything. This guy Kurt Jai Mongol does it, and he has people on from the UFO field, but he also has like theoretical physicists on talking about string theory and dark matter. And like I'll listen to those and I won't even begin to understand, pretend that I understand what the hell they're talking about, or like what they start talking about these mathematical equations. And like I tried reading the Wikipedia of what dark matter is, and I just felt like my brain was going to fall out of my ear, because I just don't, I am too dumb to be reading this. Like I wish I was smart enough to understand what that is. It's like it's the absence of everything and everything all at once, like together. And I can't even begin to explain what the hell it is. But anyway, he has people on that talk about that. But he interviews a lot of UFO people, and he had Lou Elizondo on a number of times. And Lou had said that he actually, an iconic thing that he said was, someone asked in a super chat question that was, if all of us knew all the information that Lou had that he couldn't talk about because of his non-disclosure agreements and his military clearances, he said it would be a very somber moment for humanity and a point of reflection for us. And that is like the somber quote is what people refer to it as. I remember it was from a few, like 2021. I remember watching that podcast live when he said that, like, oh god damn, like. And I think that's what he means, of just like this shock of like of us not, that we're not alone, and these beings are so vastly more intelligent and just so more advanced than us.
See, like, I mean, just from a personal point of view, it's one of those things that I always wanted to, like I said, this is something I said probably in my 20s. I came up with it. I don't know if I got it from somewhere, if I Frankensteined it together or whatever, but the
Uh-huh.
thing was, a wise man knows he has much to learn.
You said that in your other podcast, and I
Yeah,
I think that is, yeah,
it's something I
absolutely.
said way back then, and I
I
remember
couldn't
thinking,
agree more.
huh?
I could not agree with you more.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
and it's like, to me, that's what I always wanted. I wanted to know everything. I didn't want to believe something. I wanted to know it, and
Yeah,
that's what I want from these aliens. I want knowledge. I mean, of course, yeah,
absolutely.
the free energy, cool. Being able to power my car, basically start it up and it just is powered forever.
And
Great.
it is. It
But
just is.
I want to know, like me, I've always been interested in sociology, right? What
Uh-huh.
makes someone believe, or what makes someone do the things that they do?
Uh-huh.
Why do they react in certain ways to certain situations? Blah 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 blah, right? I want to know, what is the life cycle of these NHIs? What is it like when they're children? Do they, you know what I mean? What are they one of these, like a communal thing where you don't really have parents? You learn from everyone, or is it what is it? What's
Right.
their life
That
like? That's the kind of stuff
that's
I want to know.
yeah.
So
Uh I absolutely.
it's like,
I
for me, it's like everything that you're saying is like, or one of the things that always really intrigued me was, um about the whole thing was our beginnings.
oh yeah.
And of course, if you're religious, you believe a certain thing. I'm not religious, so
I am not at all.
I look at that and I say, okay, then what is the beginning? What happened? What was that catalyst that made it change? Is it literally what, like Darwin explains, where there was hundreds of thousands of years for us to get to the point where we were able to have that moment of clarity, and we were able
Right.
to, move on from there, and then it just slowly grew from there? Or did something intervene? And if
Was there
something intervened,
intervention? Yeah, with like one strain of apes somewhere in northern Africa that, somehow decided to pick up a stick or something, and
right?
that's what started it all. Like, we started accelerating really fast. We it's only been a few 100,000 years since, like, what, about 250,000 years, I think it is, since we were like the very first like Neolithic humans, when we first started walking upright, coming like, when there were those certain strains of apes in Africa that like started to and maybe migrating out just a bit. Like, what happened then? And then, I mean, you just look back in so many like ancient texts. I mean, you could look back in the Bible and so many things seem like they could be alien related. But then you just look at like these cave paintings and sculptures and stuff like that. There's like these caves in like France where like some of the earliest cave paintings are. And these people painted what they saw. Like, they would go on a hunt, they painted people going on a hunt. Why the hell were they painting discs and creatures with big heads and big eyes that look kind of like grays or whatever you want to call them? They were painting what they saw. And there's like, I don't think we have to really go. I mean, you got to go much like, you don't have to go much deeper to understand, like, okay, there's clearly a connection here. Or, beings in like weird suits with big eyes, like, that were sculptures found in like, these ancient civilizations in like, the jungles of the Amazon. And then, you find stuff in like Southeast Asia, things like this. And then, there's hieroglyphs where it's clear as fuck a disc with like rays coming down and a friggin' beam coming from it. Like, there's like a painting of like the Madonna with a fucking UFO in it. There's another like painting of like a disc with like a light coming down. Like, how much more do you need to be like, that's clear as fuck, an alien craft? It's the same exact thing. We've been seeing these things for thousands and thousands of years of all this stuff. And like the Romans talking about like flying shields of fire. It's like, they just equated it to what they thought it was back then.
See, I guess what part of what intrigues me about that is, like, you think of the Aztecs, you think of the Incas, right?
Yeah.
You think of Alexandria. the Library of Alexandria. What I mean, now that's a different, probably a different situation. That's, a conquering army coming in and burning down the
Man, I
library.
wonder what was in that.
I know.
Apparently, it wasn't just one library, it was multiple ones of like these archives
Just
of
everything.
knowledge. Yeah.
And it was like,
Nowhere there's a lot of stuff like that, apparently, that I just learned about. Underneath the Vatican, there's like tunnels that run for like 50 something miles underneath the Vatican of all sorts of shit that they don't let other people see. We can get to that too. The Vatican has been really, they have a huge astronomy and science section. They know all about all this stuff that's been going on. They've said things
definitely.
here and there that, like, anything else would be God's children. Like, so I don't think religion would really turn on its head. Like Christianity, they seem to be like, okay, we'll be all right with it, I guess.
Yeah, but I mean, they, well, just in general, they seem to just kind of assimilate whatever they
Yeah,
come
they
up with,
seem, yeah,
you know.
but it's more like, if you want to get into this, like, did you hear what Grush had said of when the first recovery of the crafts were?
1933, right?
33, man, that apparently like it crashed in Italy and like Mussolini scooped it up. And I mean, he was lockstep with like Germany and Hitler then. Like, if you look and you see these schematics from Nazi Germany, that they had these weird disc type objects that they were trying to build there. So who knows what the hell? I think the Germans had something too, that they recovered some of this stuff. But apparently, from what I remember hearing about, that this craft crashed and in Italy in 33, and the Vatican was involved too, and there were two beings aboard, and they looked human, but they were like tall, like 7 feet tall, and they had long, like white blonde hair. They thought they were Germans at first, and there's been a lot of reports of like, in it, besides Greys, that there's like completely human looking aliens, or like these humanoid, I guess Nordic people they call them, that are really tall. So they said they looked tall. They had like stranger facial features. Their skin had like a translucence to it, but like it was something with their blood too. Like the blood wasn't what we have running through our system. It was something else. And the uh their hands and their feet, the dimensions of them were way different than ours. And like, apparently, who knows what Mussolini did with this from 33, and then in like 1945, when we won the war, we scooped it all up and brought it back here, and it was probably brought back to Ohio, Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, where the Roswell stuff was brought, because that base, which I think still is, it's still active in Ohio today, in Dayton. um it was for any foreign material, something or other, foreign material command, like anything that they captured from like the Japanese or the Russians or the Germans, the Italians, any of our enemies. Any of that crap was brought back there for the scientists to like take apart, a German like V2 rocket or whatever, a Stuka bomber, take it apart and figure out how the hell it worked. So that's where that shit was sent to. Like, all right, take it apart and figure out how it worked. So Wright-Patterson Airfield has always been one of those spots where, like, what the hell is going on there?
Well, and uh during that press thing, I can't remember what I can never remember what you called it. Greer's thing.
What, the National Press Club?
When he
That's why
yeah,
it was at the National Press Club.
yeah, he listed all the Air Force bases, and one is like 30 minutes away from me.
Oh, there's so many in Texas.
Yeah.
How far do you live from Stephenville, Texas?
Probably an hour and a half, something like that.
Okay.
But I've
Do
been
you
through there
even
many times.
Stephenville has an insane history of UFOs, dude. You got to look into it. Looking at a 2008 UFO flap over Stephenville, Texas, they have history going back decades of shit there. I think
Hmm.
it might have been in Stephenville, where it was somewhere in Texas. It might have been that, where there was a crash. They said it was an airship. It was like 1896 or something like that. An airship crashed. It crashed into some judge's windmill, and it crashed. And they found the body, and the body was not human. It was described as kind of gray, and they gave it a Christian burial, and they threw this debris down a well. it might have been Stephenville, but it was like 1890 something. It was before the Wright brothers flew.
I've
Look
never
it
heard
up.
that.
There's a lot of, I mean, Texas is a crazy state anyway, but like it is. I'm not gonna bullshit you. Like, you guys are your own country. Yeah, there's like Stephenville, Texas. It might have been there, but Stephenville in 2008, there was a massive, massive flap of sightings over there, and there's all sorts of spooky shit dating back like 70s, 60s, 50s of all sorts of flyovers and weird stuff being seen over there.
Hey, I think it's
Everyone says loving the content. Good. I'm glad I
no,
could help you.
everybody seems to be really enjoying this. I mean,
Cool.
I really
I'm
appreciate.
happy.
Of
That
course,
was
I appreciate you
Aurora,
coming on.
Texas. Right, Billy. Yeah, you're right. Aurora, Texas is where the airship crashed into. Yes, the windmill. It crashed into the windmill, and then apparently underneath the windmill, it was like in the well is where the debris was, and the body was buried in a church graveyard. And supposedly there was even a grave supposedly there. This is like, I don't know if you have Weird Texas, like over here we have Weird New Jersey magazine, talks about all that weird stuff. That would have been something that they would have written about, of like this mystical whatever fucking grave of a alien that was there. I think it's been dug up and it's nothing is there. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm sure the government snatched that.
Well,
shit
he even
up
said
right
that
away.
they removed the headstone because
Oh,
of
you went to the
vandals.
graveyard? They removed the headstone because of right. That sucks.
Well, look,
Did you guys do that for Chasing the Unknown? Speaking of what, you guys have to bring that back. I love
well, I
that
mean,
show.
we did
I
do a
saw
show.
you guys did a thing. Do you know that I started another channel called I Know a Place that's about that?
No,
Nobody knows about this. I only we did one episode, and I wanted it to be about, because whenever you bring up spooky shit, everyone always says, "Oh, I know a place." Everyone knows a place. So we did one
Right.
episode. I have no time to edit or anything. We went to this road called Clinton Road in North Jersey, which supposedly has all sorts of weird stories about ghosts and, you know, orbs and shit like that. So I filmed. It was me, my buddy Rob, who's at like every con with me, tall, goofy guy with the Back to the Future hat, and Rob, Brad, the drummer for Rex Viper, and me and him have known each other for like 20 years. So we did one episode. You know, yeah, Billy, of course you know Rob. He's been coming to friggin' shows forever. He's always me and him are always splitting hotel rooms. You know, we're con buddies.
well, look,
One of my best friends.
I have
Yeah,
to use
but
the
we did
restroom.
one episode. What's that?
I was gonna say I have to use the restroom.
Go
So-
take a piss. Go do your thing.
All right.
Go on pause. Go do your thing.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna just put it on pause or on the be right back screen, so you can say whatever you want. They won't hear you. I'll put you on mute and all that
that's
stuff.
fine. I'm just gonna sit here on my phone.
Okay. Well, I'll be right back then.
Sure.
Be right back, guys.
Yep.
Okay, we're back. We're back on. Now, hey, we've been going down the path, right? The all kinds of different paths, but I do
You
have
go
a
down one
question.
path and it doesn't stop.
It's great though. It's great. It's great stuff.
Yeah.
And I really, dude, seriously, really appreciate you coming on. This has been amazing.
Oh, no, like I can talk about this endlessly because like I love what I do with Squarepainter. I've made it. I'm so proud of like myself that I've made this. I do it full time. I paint full time. Like I'm in a gallery right now and like I sell my stuff for like decent enough prices, like where I'm not living large, but I could pay my share of the mortgage and I could pay my bills. And like both my cats need to go to the vet on Friday. I'm not worried about vet bills. But like I do that, and then I'm so lucky that like I get to play in Rex Viper and do all this cool shit. We're playing Portland. We're gonna play like all these other cons. But the UFO stuff, this is more important than any of that. This is more important than any of the shit that we're doing.
Yeah.
Like what we're doing, this is just surface level crap. Yeah, we should be happy and excited we get to do all this creative, cool stuff. But like the fact that there's non-human intelligence coming here that's vastly superior than us, and we have their technology and we're fully aware of it, and we're this is not being held back. This is being held back, and this is not a conspiracy theory. And like this could change our whole society and like how we live and how we believe and like how we are as humans.
Yeah. How we
That's like
interact with each other.
how we interact with each other and like understanding what a human being is, like what it means to be alive, like what it means to have a soul. Like this is more important than anything. Like I don't know how to get through to people with shit like this.
I know.
And so I will gladly talk about this kind of stuff because, like, a lot of my friends, they're just like, oh, Adam's ranting about aliens again. It's like, well, how about you shut the fuck up and pay attention for a second because this is fucking important.
I totally get you, man. I totally.
Yeah, like I love talking about game collecting and all this stuff and like, oh, whatever absurd prices Super Nintendo games are going for. Like, that's cool and all, but like there's non-human intelligence coming here and we're going to learn about it soon, and you got to be ready. Like
Right. But I
yeah,
really wanted to. It was Bucho actually asked this earlier, and I was like, "Oh, that's a great
sure.
question. What are your
top
top three
three
UFO movies?"
top three Close Encounters of the Third Kind, um Fire in the Sky. Even though I don't believe Travis Walton, I don't think Travis Walton's telling the truth. There's a lot of things to point that he wasn't. It's just a good showing of like an experience of being abducted, even though like kind of the end I like, just of like it's like a horror aspect kind of. He didn't even describe that it was like a violent thing
Yeah.
on like the craft of them putting like a bed sheet over his face and sticking a needle in his eye and like smearing like dog shit in his mouth. Like that's just like a crazy as fuck scene. So don't take that as like, I would say that Close Encounters of the Third Kind is way more of like what would be more real. Do you know who J. Allen Hynek is? He was the head of Project
Yep,
Blue
and
Book.
he's in it. Yeah.
Hynek was in that movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Jacques Vallée was, he's like the OG friggin' UFO guy. He wasn't in it, but the French
Right.
ufologist in it was based on Vallée, and Vallée is good friends with Spielberg. Spielberg was way, way, way into this. He's actually doing like, I think it's a Netflix series or
Yep.
something soon that's going to be about this. And like, we need voices like that, someone that like could
Yep.
tell a story visually, and just, the genius of Spielberg being able to do that. It's what's needed. So anyway, my third one would be a made-for-TV movie from 1992. You can find it on YouTube. It's a VHS rip. It's called Intruders. This movie scared the shit out of me when I was like 11. Do you know who Bud Hopkins is?
Mm-mm.
Bud Hopkins was an artist in the 90s and the 80s. He might have started in like 79. Super successful artist. And he started getting involved. He was a trained hypnotist, like regressive hypnotist, and started working with people that were abductees and created like a support group for them. He later worked with John Mack, the guy I talked about, the Harvard psychologist that worked with the kids in Zimbabwe. You can find tons of talks with them. Anyway, Bud Hopkins wrote a book called Intruders. I would say go read that. They made a made-for-TV movie about that, which is essentially about one of the possible alien agendas of, I suppose, the Greys needing our genetic material to repopulate their species, because I guess they became so sterile and needed us as like fresh DNA, I guess, to like reinvigorate their species. And we essentially came from them, and that's why our DNA is compatible with theirs. And that has been surmised in a lot of things. But like the human baby, the alien hybrid stuff, like there's any of the scenes where like any of the people, like they're in the beginning, this woman is like, she's like frying up eggs and she cracks two eggs and sees the yolks, and the yolks remind her of the big alien eyes, and she like flashes back, and it's done like really 1992 cheesy like TV movie. Like it can't get any more than that. But like that freaked me the fuck out when I was a kid. And I love that movie. I was looking for it for a long time. I forgot the name of it. Then it was like, oh, duh, it's based on it's named Intruders off the fucking Bud Hopkins book that I've read.
I'm
So you
I,
could find that. Yeah, watch those. But
well,
like No Fire in the Sky is like, don't take that as any semblance of reality. I like that more just for a movie
like a
in
freaky,
itself.
yeah, it's a freaky movie.
It's a freaky friggin' movie, man. That movie scared the crap out of me too
I
when I
reviewed
saw it.
it.
I thought the Travis Walton thing was real. And then there's been a lot of stuff that's come out about added intruders to your watch list. Hell yeah. Good choice. Good life choice. Um that uh they they essentially made up that story to like get it in the National Enquirer, and there's photos of them like holding up their National Enquirer checks about it. And then like the media frenzy just got so out of control so quickly that they stuck with the story. Apparently the first time they took the lie detector test, I mean, and that's iffy anyway, they all failed it. And it's always been so weird. And whenever like, yeah, I know a lot of these documentary and guys like make money doing their documentaries, but they're not making like millions and millions of dollars. You
Right.
know, they're making enough to live, which is fine. But like Travis Walton has made a lot of money like selling the rights to a movie, and he wants to do another one, and he does all these like book tours and shit like that. And that's fine making money off of stuff, but it's like, I don't know. It's like a bridge too far with him. And again, I could be completely wrong. Travis Walton could be telling the truth. And that's how I always say, like, I'm never say I'm 100% on any of this
Right.
shit I talk about. I could be completely wrong, but I don't think I am with this. It's just, there's been too many things that have come up over the years that I don't believe the Walton story.
Yeah. I'm there with you on that one. But at the same time, yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
you went to the actual phone
we
booth?
drove
Yeah.
well, I'm
That
sure
was in
they
like,
did.
oh,
Billy and
yeah,
I
that,
were on the way back from California from, in
uh-huh.
fact, one of the SoCals, and we drove by it. So I got to
Oh,
see it.
that's awesome.
But
Yeah,
yeah,
it's in like Snowflake, Arizona, right?
it's
Northern
yeah,
Arizona.
something like that. I don't know.
That's awesome.
I don't
Yeah,
remember where
I
we
would
were.
love to see like do you know about the 1965 Kecksburg, PA crash? Oh, that one's fucking weird as shit. Kecksburg is uh way west of Philly. Like Pennsylvania is a huge friggin' state. It's like 4.5 hours. If I continued with the I Know a Place show, I wanted to do one out there. So there was this object that was tracked over. Yeah, the acorn or the bell. Yeah, I guess acorn, or like people have said that it's also like it might have been something like the Nazi time travel bell. I don't know how true
What
that is.
city did you say?
Kecksburg, PA. So in 65, this thing was tracked over Canada, over like Ontario and Quebec, and it was coming in and it made like a controlled landing, and it crashed in the woods in Kecksburg, PA. And these people that they're still alive because it was 65, you know. So there's people that are still alive. There's a lot of people that have been on record on multiple documentaries saying they went into the woods. They were standing right there next to this thing. They said it was like 12 feet long. It looked like a fucking acorn. There was like solid metal, like no rivets or seams or whatever, all this shit you hear, but it had this acorn shape, and around the bottom of it, it had like these really weird raised up kind of hieroglyph type markings on it. They might have been carved in. I might be getting that part wrong. But then you hear the general story of like, soon after the military swooped right in, state police were there too, but like the military cordoned off the area. You had the guys in the black suits. They threw everybody out of there. They loaded this thing up on a flatbed truck and bang, it's gone. And then the legend grew from there. They actually have a sculpture of the acorn. It's like tan with the hieroglyph things around it. You can just look up like Kecksburg sculpture. I've never been out there. I wanted to do an I Know a Place episode for that one. But that one's a crazy story because an acorn shape is like you don't really hear that a lot. And I always thought for a long time, like, all right, maybe that was like some weird Russian space capsule or something. But then the way it was described of like being so smooth that it didn't have any rivets or seams or anything like that. I don't know, man. It's just that one's a weird one. That's like an anomaly. It doesn't because I always a big thing for me is like I always like to find continuity in things that makes it more believable. Like saying even
Right.
stuff I don't really want to believe, like the alien human hybrid thing. Like, how many fucking times do you have to hear that story? Well, like an acorn shape, it's always like an orb or a disc or something like that. You know, you hear about those are the shapes you hear about, you know, or like a tic tac. You know, people referred to it as a flying propane tank back in the day. Side note, I don't agree with Greer also that that was an alien reproduction vehicle. That was not one of ours. He was the only one that said that that was something else. That was not something we made. If there's an alien reproduction vehicle, there wouldn't be any seams or anything on it. David Fravor said that it was just a white fucking tic tac and it had these little weird things on the end and it outpaced them at everything. Like there's I don't believe again, I could be wrong, but uh Greer is the only one that has said that he thinks it's from the Lockheed Skunk Works. No one, and he's hasn't given one shred of evidence. He just says, "Oh, I'm Stephen Greer, and that's what I say." So clearly, I believe that. But it's I don't think it is. I think that was legit. I don't know if it was probably manned. I don't know, or a probe or something like that. The big thing that I find weird about that too was like, and we can get into this too. There was something under the water.
Right.
They said there was waves crashing over something under the water, and that was off the coast of Southern California near San Diego. And just as many UFO stories you hear about, like USOs, Richard Dolan talks a lot about that. The submerged objects of like so many of them, like the amount of like stories you hear from like former Navy guys, like just regular Navy grunts to like admirals on ships talking about like craft or like things like a mile wide coming out of the ocean and taking off like that you're going in the ocean that it doesn't leave a splash, like crazy stories, but especially off the coast of Southern California. Catalina Island, have you ever heard of that?
Mm-mm.
Catalina Island's a weird place. It's off the coast of Southern California, and there's been tons of stories of weird craft and lights coming in and out of the water. There's this UFO researcher Ben Hansen, who I really like. He did uh a whole investigation there and said that there's all these really strange magnetic anomalies in that area, and there's really deep trenches. Like it drops off really sharp where that is. So if something's hiding, it's a good spot. But like all down that like coast of California into like Baja, Mexico, there's tons and tons and tons of stories of stuff coming in and out of the waters for like hundreds of years. Like old,
Hmm.
like, Native American tribes that, from that area talked about seeing weird shit, call them like star children or whatever they were. It was part of that. It was part of the gods, you know. It's again going off on another tangent about that. But yeah, it was just strange that where David Fravor saw it was like an area with like a huge concentrated activity of just, I mean, shit happens everywhere, but especially that area, like Southern California and the ocean is weird. Thoughts on Skinwalker Ranch? That place is real. That's a fucking portal. Skinwalker Ranch is a portal, interdimensional portal, whatever that is. We don't even understand what interdimensional is, but
Well,
it's definitely that.
because I watched I was actually going to ask you that too.
That's a
Was
whole other discussion. Jesus Christ.
but is it?
Of
I mean,
But anyway, wait. Fravor and Dietrich talk about, yeah. Alex Dietrich was the other pilot.
yeah,
She doesn't even really like talking about it that much. It's like, she's kind of like, yeah, it was just a thing I experienced. I didn't ask to, and I don't really want to be involved.
yeah.
She was on that UFO podcast, that guy Andy, and it was kind of boring. I turned it off. I was like, all right, you know. But anyway, yeah, they saw something breaking. It was like something under the water. They thought it was like a helicopter. They said the waves were breaking over it. So that's what I want to know. Like, what the fuck was that? Because after
Well,
the Tic Tac engaged them, they turned around and it was gone. There was
see,
nothing under the water. So whatever it was went back down or disappeared or who knows where it
and I
went.
thought that's what UAP meant, was like unidentified anomalous phenomena.
It could be yeah, it's unidentified
Because
anomalous phenomena or aerial phenomena. It's just
I thought they
I
took
like
aerial out of it
UFO.
because of all the sea stuff that they were seeing too. So
Yeah,
it was
yeah.
one term that could cover everything.
Yeah, pretty much. Well, I mean, Lou Elizondo talks about it's called the five observables, and one of them is transmedium travel. That's through air, space, or water. That these things, like the Navy talks about on like nuke subs and stuff like that. That you could find tons of testimony of just saying that they have radar hits of these things going like 3, 4, 500 knots, whatever that equals. It's like it's an absurd speed that we cannot achieve like with just how these things move. And they said
Yeah.
all the time that there are these things moving under the ocean. But
Yeah.
yeah, you want to get into Skinwalker Ranch? I mean, you got another
Yeah.
3 hours to go
Well, I mean,
for that. That could be a whole other thing we talk about. So
well, I
we can
mean,
brush on it.
do you like, have you seen like the interview with that, I can't remember the guy's name. The Sean Ryan show where he was talking about.
I need to watch the Sean Ryan show. I don't actually,
Okay, well
but
he's had a few people on that have been really really interesting, but he had the guy that owns Skinwalker Ranch now, that does the.
oh, Brandon Fugel.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's a super solid dude. I've talked to him on like Instagram and shit before for being like this multi fucking millionaire real estate guy. He's like a super chill dude.
Yeah, he's
I,
done. He did like a 4 hour interview over on
oh yeah,
the Sean
yeah.
Ryan show. So
He is like when they first did that show, I watched a few episodes from it and I'm like, this seems stupid and staged, and I don't like that they're making this into a circus. Like Skinwalker Ranch is something that needs to be taken like very serious. Like all the stuff that was done in the 90s with the NIDS team with what's his name? The other real estate guy. Bigelow, Robert Bigelow with his NIDS team. All that stuff's under lock and key. Like um that they've said like the new guys that own it can't get any access to the data or anything that they've found. Supposedly that Bigelow has non-human craft or pieces of stuff that's alien related locked away in some warehouses in Vegas. I mean, who friggin' knows with someone that has like that kind of multi-billionaire affluence, like what you can do with that. But that anyway, that Brandon Fugel has been on a lot of podcasts, and after listening to him, I had like a renewed respect for him because I didn't know anything about the guy before. That he'd said like, first of all, like because people always say like, oh, well, how do you guys have this show of the cameras working if all these electronics fail all the time? And it's like, dude, where they have like quad redundancy of like all these cameras there because they're constantly failing because of the magnetic and anomalies and radiation are shutting things down all the time. And on top of that, like Sean Ryan interviews so good. I got to check him out. That's like I'm learning stuff too. I don't know everything, but that they have open source data for everything. You can watch the live cameras. You can go on right now and look at the live cameras at Skinwalker Ranch at night, and people see weird shit on there all the time. There was actually one video of a live stream recently where someone saw these orbs going up and down in the sky, and Brandon clarified right away. It's like these are not UAP. This was a drone test that was being done by this company. Tagged the guy in it and was like, yup, that's exactly what this is. So this guy is being as forthright as possible about this. He's as curious as we are about all this stuff. Like, and a lot of
and
the
he just
times he
happens
said,
to
like,
have the
we're
millions
only
of dollars to.
yeah, I mean, he's like, I have all this money. I throw so much of my money down this. I'm not getting an investment back. I'm just beyond curious about this that I spend tens of millions of dollars on this. Imagine having that kind of money that you could spend tens of millions of dollars and not care. That's like,
That's
you're like a
crazy.
different kind of human being if you're like that. I swear.
Yeah.
You ever met a really rich person? You ever hung
Yes.
out with a rich person? They're like a different human being.
They're
Like
insane.
they are not like me and you. They're not. That's a whole other conversation too. Like, but so he talks about this, and they're like, look, we only have a finite amount of time to film. for like a few months, like where I even have time from like my real estate empire of like where I could even do this, or where everybody, all the scientists that have their other jobs, like Travis Taylor has all these like jobs with the government and shit to get and do this. Like we don't have time to stage shit. We just have time to get in, do experiments, figure out what happens. And yeah, History Channel plays it up a little bit, but like he specifically said, like he even has like contracts online of like you cannot, that the History Channel cannot fake anything on this. Like that's part of the clause in the contract. Like History Channel is not allowed to do that. Like what happens is what you're seeing. And I've heard him say this over and over again on podcasts. I'm like, this is a man I could fucking respect.
Yeah.
So I've always found Skinwalker Ranch to just be, I don't know what the hell it is, man, but it's like it's just a nexus of everything. And there's other places in the United States, and there's probably got to be other ones around the world that are like that too. But I don't know what it is. Some kind of overlap of energy or whatever it is. Some kind of interdimensional portal. And I don't even think we understand even what the hell that means.
Yeah.
That these beings are interdimensional, because that's supposedly too, like they're not just, and I've always thought it's like it's way more complicated than just little gray guys hopping in a UFO and coming from the Pleiades cluster to the Earth and bending space time. Like the idea of like bending space time, like that's like traveling interdimensionally. Like we don't even understand how to do that or what that does. And I think nukes are also involved in that. Like we're blowing things up on an atomic level with such like violent force of energy. Like what does that do to another dimension? Like would that affect it? Like that's just something I would pose a question to a nuclear physicist. Like that seems like something it could be, like that expulsion of like just massive fucking energy. Like what does that do to a dimension and interdimensional beings? Are we fucking with their world and their society, and we don't even know what we're doing because we're just these like violent hairless apes that blow shit up on an atomic level with no regard for anyone or anything else? Like we just do whatever we want. We like blowing shit up.
Well, that's what I thought was interesting about, um again, like what Greer was saying, was that's why there seemed to be a like an uptick in the number of events, I'll just say,
Oh
is
yeah.
that it was all that all stemmed from 1945. It was the
Yeah,
atomic bomb.
that was the massive uptick, because even before the Roswell crash happened, because it happened in Corona, New Mexico, but Roswell, that was the only active nuke base in the world at the time. That was the only place where we had nukes. It was like whatever 184th Air Squadron, whatever it was.
Yeah.
And like these guys were like top of the top, like hand-picked guys to be there. So like you couldn't have more credible people involved in the Roswell case. And they said they were seeing these craft all through like months before that. I mean, the Kenneth Arnold sighting in of Mount Rainier, Washington, he said it was like almost like a bat, like V-shaped type craft. And like that's what crashed in Roswell. It was actually two crafts that crashed in Roswell. They collided with each other. One was found in like 47, and I think the other one was found in like 49 or something. But again, the timeline's fuzzy on that. But anyway, like June of 47, Kenneth Arnold saw these in Mount Rainier, and these craft were being seen. And then July, this thing fucking crashes on Mac Brazel's ranch out in Corona, New Mexico. And and there's so many other corroborating things about it, like the material that Jesse Marcel talks about of the foil, that it was like these sheets and you could crumple it up and it would snap back and you couldn't dent it. It was like you tried to burn it with his lighter, it wouldn't do anything. And it was like super lightweight, but it was super strong. That is like, again, like talking about all these corroborating events. You hear so many things about these UFO crashes, about this super light foil that snaps back into shape when you try to crumple it. And that was the first time we heard about that. So Roswell, maybe it was a little bit different than we're being told. Maybe the history's not accurate because there's been so many books that have been written about it, and people that like maybe don't have firsthand account about it. It was just like second or third hand. So, and it definitely happened. I firmly, absolutely. There was a crash. There were bodies recovered. It was not from this planet, be it interdimensional or I don't know, from Zeta Reticuli or wherever the hell they came from. Who knows? But they weren't. And from what everyone's from all the reports that yeah, there was one craft was like obliterated, and then the other one was found like a mile away, and that's the one where there were like two bodies in there, and two of them were dead, and one of them was alive, and it died soon after or something like that. But there's so many corroborating reports. Do you know who shit, what's his name? Glenn Dennis. Have you ever heard of him? He was someone that was involved in this. He was a mortuary assistant
It sounds
in
familiar.
Roswell. There's you can find video of him from like 1990 just being interviewed. I think Stanton Friedman might have interviewed him. You know, he was Stanton Friedman, the nuclear
That
physicist.
sounds
Unfortunately,
familiar
he
too,
passed
but
away. Oh man, he was the one that like blew open the doors for Roswell. He started looking into all this in like the 80s, in like 79, 80. He started looking, or maybe in the 70s, he was looking into Roswell. And he found Jesse Marcel. He was the one that got him on camera, like walking out in Mac Brazel's field, talking about all the shit that was found. But uh anyway, Glenn Dennis, he was like a mortuary assistant. He was young. He was only like 18 or 19 at the time. And from what I remember from his interviews, that some air base commander called up and they were asking about hermetically sealed caskets that were small, like for children. Like, what's the smallest ones you have? And like he got them together and he brought them to the base. And he said he was dating like a nurse that worked on the base. And one of this nurse happened to be working on one of the beings. Like he went to visit her and she was like almost throwing up from like the smell of this. And like apparently he was told, he was threatened, like he needed to leave. He said the guy came right up and pointed a finger right in his chest and is like, it's a big desert out there, we can make you disappear. And he said like he went out to lunch with her and she drew what it looked like, and it looked like a gray. And that's just one of the many stories about this. But again, I don't know how true it is and what he's saying, but he said this story over and over, and it was proven that yes, he did work for like the mortuary in Roswell in 47. So it's crazy stories like that. So we don't know exactly what happened, but like Roswell definitely happened. I think when that once this comes out, and I feel like we definitely are, James Fox has said it, like we are on a path of no return, like sooner rather than later, and it's probably going to be sooner. This is all coming out when the DOD or whoever it's going to be is going to be dragged kicking and screaming about this, and it's going to come out. And I think maybe, like I'm just saying, that the first thing that would come out would be like, okay, the basic truth about Roswell, like what the fuck really happened there.
do you think what do you think about this timeline that I keep? I mean, the 2027 one has got to be crazy, but I mean, multiple people have talked about this almost like a time limit, you know?
Uh-huh.
Like
And yeah, I've heard that too. I don't know too much about it. Do you know who John Ramirez is? He's an ex-CIA guy. He does a lot of the podcast stuff. He's a really interesting guy. He's an
sounds familiar, but
ex-Intel. Yeah, John Ramirez has been around for a long time, and he has been talking about 2027 also. Hold on one sec. I need to grab like a water or seltzer or
yeah, do
something.
it.
I
Do
will
it.
be right
Do
back.
it.
Two
I'll
seconds.
just put it on me and we'll talk for a second. Catch up a chat. All right. Wow. Uh this has been really fun. And yeah, thank you guys for hanging out. I hope you're enjoying it as much as I am. This has been really fun. And I think probably one of the more amazing things is his recall. Like he's pulling out names I'm like there's no way I could remember all that without having been into it for so long. Like I mean, he said he's been into it for a long time, but I hope you guys are enjoying this. And again, it's kind of an impromptu thing. You know, he basically texted me and said, "Hey, let's talk. I didn't know you were into it. Let's talk about it." And I'm like, "All right, let's do a thing. Let's do a show." So, what you mean you can't remember the names? You know what I mean. You know what I mean. But no, I'm glad you guys are enjoying it. I still need to watch some of that Skinwalker Ranch stuff for sure. Oh, he's back. He's
Yeah,
back.
you should. Yeah, I just grabbed. I got a yerba in the fridge. So yeah,
Do your thing.
I think it's like season 3 they're up to. I haven't watched any of season 3, but like 1 and 2 have been interesting. There was actually
They're on
in like
Hulu.
yeah, the end of season 2, they were doing something of like drilling into this mesa where a lot of the activity had been going on, and they found some like weird metal was coming out of it because they were like drilling and like pumping water into it to like get this metal out of it or to get debris out. It was metal, so I don't know what the hell is in there, but there's always been rumors that there's something buried there because even when the Shermans owned the ranch in the 90s before they sold it to Bigelow, I mean, the stories they told, like all this, the poltergeist activity and like the fucking dire wolf that's like this tall showing up and like he's shooting it and like the thing is unfazed and like the meat, like some flesh falls off and it like rots right away. It's crazy. Like it sounds so insane, those stories, but they said that they heard drilling underground, like deep underground, like noise or whatever, and felt the ground shake. And I don't know, it's fucking weird. But like that area of the country too, I mean, all over, the military has like these deep, deep, deep installations and tunnels that run all over the country that we just don't fucking know about.
Yeah,
Like
see
there's,
that.
I know there's one massive military base in Colorado that like goes way underground, but there's supposedly it's spotty about this, like Dulce, New Mexico, that apparently this mesa is like fucking hollowed out, and there's this insane military base in there. It's like joint with aerospace corporations, and there's been stories of like from the Native American tribes, way before we were even here, and fucked everything up, that there's been UFO sightings all over the place, especially in that area around that mesa. And I mean, they refer to them as the Star Children,
Hmm.
that's, it's part of their religion. But specifically, that mesa is like a point for UFOs. And there's a rumor, I don't know how true it is, that it's a hollowed out fucking mesa that's a military base. It's crazy. Sounds like some James Bond shit.
One of the things that I like, like since I started looking into this and since I started talking about it, one of the things that kind of I've been thinking a lot about for some reason, it just kind of came to my head
Mm-hmm.
was I guess I was probably 13 or 14 years old. My plan was I wanted to be an aerospace engineer, and I
I wish I
met.
was that smart to do that.
Huh? Yeah,
I
well, I
wish I
mean,
was smart enough to do that.
I was. I mean, I was pretty nuts, genius level, blah blah blah, whatever, and I'm like, okay,
Amazing.
but it was all math, right? I was really really good at math and like high level math at a very young age. But anyway, that was my plan because I wanted to be a pilot first. I wanted Top Gun, right? I wanted to be freaking Maverick, right?
Right.
But
We
when I
all, yeah.
realized that I was my eyes weren't good enough for that, I said, okay, well, what's the next best thing? I'm just gonna build them, right? Design them. So I met this guy, and this was in Oklahoma. In like I said, it had to have been 89, 90. No, it had to have been after that. I can't remember exactly when it was, but it was basically
Okay.
after the B2 had been, uh, I guess, declassified.
The
And
B 2 bomber was declassified. Yeah, I'd say like 9091,
yeah,
probably.
so
Yeah.
somewhere around there, right? It was after. I know that. It was after
Yeah.
that. But I met this guy who designed a bunch of the stuff on the B2.
Wow.
And I was asking him, what should I do? What should I, what are my steps? Basically, give me the career path. What am I going to do?
Right.
I mean, I was too young to really take a whole lot of it to heart, but I just remember how nervous he was and how like the what he was talking about, like the cost of things and stuff like that. And then you hear
What do you
these,
mean the cost of things?
like he said one of the antennas, because he worked for, I believe, Northrop,
Mm-hmm.
and he said, and man, I wish I could have a recording of all the stuff that we talked about. But I mean, it was like hours of him talking about this. But he was,
I would love to talk to people like that.
yeah,
I find that shit endlessly
he
fascinating.
was so nervous. But he was talking about this one antenna that he worked on that's on the front of the B 2, like in the cockpit, and he said it cost something like $2 million. for
I'm
this.
not surprised at all.
Right.
I'm not.
But then you hear about there was, I don't remember, and maybe somebody in chat remembers this because I've been watching a bunch of videos and it's all bleeding together. But some guy was saying, yeah, that a lot of these aircraft um are priced at like, $2 billion or something for the B2 when it actually only costs $200 million. And
Oh
so
yeah,
all of that money is being funneled into this, this
it's a black budget programs.
shadow
That was
government,
actually what they
whatever
were
you want to
talking
say.
about in Congress. They were specifically, Grush was specifically asked, are these military contractors overcharging? And he's like, that is one of the ways that they do this. And he mentioned something called IRADs. And I'm like, I don't know what that is. And essentially, an IRAD is like all this money that's sort of like not so legally given to these aerospace companies, and they pretend they don't see it, and the aerospace companies pretend they don't. But it's like hundreds of billions of dollars. Like, actually, to break this down, that AOC did a breakdown of this because that's mainly a lot of things she's concerned with, the government corruption side of it, which take the factor. Oh my God, my kitten is going crazy under my easel. Jesus Christ, Midna, would you stop? Midna's going to come say hi to the chat. Hi, guys. This is my new kitten, Midna, and she's out of her fucking mind. So say hi, baby. All right, go ahead. About $800 billion annually goes to the military, is the military budget. Half of that, 400 billion a year, go to these military contractors. Congress has no oversight over this whatsoever. That's what they're really mad about. That's what Tim Burchett was really pissed about. They're like, we're supposed to be able to know where every penny goes because Congress is supposed to appropriate the funds for the military. And this is all the shit you learn digging into all this. Like, I never knew this. I learned so much about how the government works. It's crazy. And there's all these ways that they just get around it. They just, I don't know, from the Pentagon, they just rubber stamp. Oh, you need that. That's what you're saying. Like, it costs 2 billion, but it's really 200 million. And yeah, bang. Okay. Here's all your money. And God knows what the hell they're spending it on. I mean, I'm sure it's not all UFOs or whatever, but it's probably like, yeah, maybe this weird radar system that's shooting these things down. There's all these stories about there's supposedly some weird particle beam array in fucking Antarctica. Like, it sounds crazy, but like, there's been not Grush, Stephen Greer had some guy come forward and say that he worked on something, and it was like this weird panel array that would like hyper focus a fucking beam. It's like something like a rudimentary Death Star, pretty much, of what
Yeah.
this thing is. And like, Antarctica is way off the map, and there's always been like, ever going back to like the Nazis were doing weird shit in Antarctica, but there's always been like weird military bases and stuff down there, and that's a whole other story. And I don't even know enough about that. But there's supposedly, like, if you really dig into some of these crazy UFO people, like, Linda Moulton Howe, you know her? She's old school. She's been around for a long time.
I
I
don't.
swear, these people, they're in it for so long that like, you can't be in this for so long because eventually you lose your mind. So I guess that's the trajectory I'm on. Because she believes like the hollow earth theory, and like underneath Antarctica is some subterranean base for like lizard beings. It's insane. And she fucking believes this. But then she did all this amazing work in like the 70s and 80s and into the 90s about crop circles in England, because some of that is definitely not human. Like, there's the ones that the humans that we make, and then there's the ones that are like, they are not from us. They are not. That's a whole other thing too, getting into crop circles. But like, Sean Ryan interviewed an Antarctica guy. Yeah, I gotta watch this Sean Ryan dude.
Yeah,
Yeah,
he actually had um 3 guys that were in that press thing,
yeah,
Dr.
yeah.
Greer.
The press
He had
club thing.
3 of those guys on. The guy
Uh-huh.
that talked about the human trafficking, which was
In
that
Indonesia.
that's a weird story.
Oh yeah, my friend Brian was going on how he 100% believes it. Again, continuity. Like, we'll get to that. Let's put a pin in that. We'll get to that one. But yeah, it's just the weird with the Antarctica, with all that kind of stuff. And Where are we going from that? I don't even remember.
Well, I mean, I don't know. We were just talking about the Mesa
The
thing, and
military budgets, the
yeah,
military budgets.
yeah,
Yeah, that's what they're really, what a lot of them are mad about. And like again, a lot of people have said you take the UFO, you take the non-human intelligence equation part out of the equation, and you just look at like this is the most rampant corruption we've ever seen in government, like
right,
ever. That it's hundreds of billions of our tax dollars being given carte blanche to these independent aerospace companies to do God knows what with, and to just fuck around with. Like, to talk to your point, like one of my really good friends, actually my friend Chris, the one that was in the Game Chasers episode where I helped him price the games, he was just telling me, I was there for his son's first birthday the other day. He was telling me he has a friend that works for Lockheed, and his friend was saying that they spent something like to the tune of like $20 million on fixing a target system on a missile to make it hit like 12 inches closer to its target, which will not do anything anyway because the blast radius on this missile is so fucking big anyway that it's gonna like decimate half a square block anyway. So what's the point? But it's like, oh, just because we can, because we have like unlimited funds, so let's throw $20 million at this project for funsies. Like, that's the, imagine that kind of money. Like, apparently with the program, whatever it is, the reverse engineering shit, wherever the UFOs are, the budget for the security of all this is like double what the money is going in for researching all this stuff to keep it secret. Apparently the security's not doing that well since, me and you were talking about it, that we
well,
know about this shit. But I mean, how much do we know about it? We don't know much, but just the
right.
fact that it's gotten out. But it's crazy. Supposedly also that there's you know about the whistleblower protection that was put in place. It was in like the 2022 defense bill, and that's how David Grush was able to talk about this.
Right.
That he was vetted, that you won't violate your NDAs and stuff like that. It's amazing that all these things were put into place. And then we can get into the 2023 bill that Chuck Schumer had done. Fucking old ass Chuck Schumer with his glasses on his nose, like ready to like. We'll get to that in a second. Like, but so apparently David Grush was the first one to come forward. Like Ross Coulthard had said, I quote, a literal conga line of whistleblowers and witnesses from these programs waiting to come forward that he has spoken to, that he has vetted, that are going through these whistleblower protections. So it's just a matter of fucking time. Apparently, the next two things that supposedly or three things that are going to happen is one, I don't know if it's going to happen next month. There was supposed to be Senate intel hearings. I don't know if they're going to be open to the public. If they are, I would try to go to one of them. Very, very indisputable, clear 4K images and video of craft shot because that are not classified. They're declassified, but the DoD is like dragging their feet on releasing them to the public. They can be released. And the third one is that there are going to be witnesses coming forward testifying under oath, like Grush and Fravor and Graves did, directly from these programs that worked on, I don't know, security for a crash retrieval team, or metallurgy on one of these craft or something like that, or working on non-human biologics, as he said. There were pilots, he said that under oath, non-human biologics, fucking literal fucking aliens, he said under oath. It, like, there was a gasp in the room when he said that, because we're all wondering, because he said it in the interview with Coulthard on News Nation, that he said, yeah, biologics came into play sometimes. With craft you find pilots. And I forgot what congresswoman said that, but yeah, he fucking said it under oath. Like, we've all heard it a million times, but to hear it from this guy who's so fucking credible and so vetted, like, that like what you were saying before, that gravity and the weight of like hearing this under oath in Congress, like, yeah, it's the same fucking story we've heard a million times, but god fucking damn. Like, my buddy Brian looked at me, he's like, that's it. As soon as he said it, he's like, game over, it's all fucking over, that's it, man, this shit is done.
But how irritated were you that nobody seemed to care?
So fucking pissed. I
Right?
went on so mad. like we were refreshing our phones in the hearing on like New York Times and CNN and even Fox News, like any big news outlet, despite what you think of any of them. And I don't like CNN and I hate Fox News. Like, are you talking about this? Are you talking about this? No, nobody is. CNN brushed on it a little bit, and they didn't talk about David Grush's like claims or something like that. You know, they talked about, they skirted around it about some of the other things. Oh, maybe he worked for one of these programs that, you know, sort of like uh knew about this. Oh, wait, what piece of alien tech would y'all like most revealed and utilized to the general population? 0 point energy, hands down.
Period.
That would be the first of many. 0 point energy, a free energy society. You go down the line of what that would do, it would free up everything. We would be living vastly different lives. We would solve the housing crisis. We would solve the pollution. We would solve homelessness.
Think
People
about
would not, we would be living, the tide would rise so much for the dirt poor of these people that need help. All these people, you should see the tent cities in Philadelphia right by my neighborhood, and the drug problem is rampant. There's an Applebee's across the street. You want fentanyl, go right over there. The drug problem is insane. It's horrible. I feel terrible for these people. Those people, all the way to us, like the working class, all of us that just struggle every day, that tide would rise for all of
well,
us.
it's like
That is what we all need.
you know you talk about, I mean, you talk about the poor of our country, but think about, you know, the people in third world countries. Like,
I
how
couldn't
many
even imagine.
geniuses died of starvation? You know, how
I
many, you know
know.
what I mean?
But like, if we had like from these energy systems, like a transportation system where, I don't know, you could be from here to like Paris in like 5 minutes or something like that. That goes to your point right there. Let's say there's some kid living in like, you know, in Morocco or something, somewhere in Africa, that is like a fucking genius about this, but because of where they live and where they grew up, they will not have any way to get out of that. I mean, we have tons of that in America here, like in inner cities. I see it in Philadelphia all the time. Like these people are born into like poverty, they can't get out of it. It's horrible, but like it's all over the world. That if someone was able to like travel to another place to get out of this and be able to get educated, you know, and work for something, like the amount of just other people being able to work on these things, and also just that the compartmentalization of this technology, that's a big problem too. Bob Lazar talked a lot about this, of that when he worked at S4, he had his lab partner, this guy Barry, and he was only allowed to talk to him. He was only allowed to work on this one propulsion system with him, and that's it. The two of them could collaborate one another. Couldn't talk to anybody else. Even when he said he was on the disc, there were other people on there too. He wasn't even allowed to make eye contact with them. Some people were working on metallurgy. They were working on something he saw where part of the wall would turn like translucent, where it was like a window, and he saw like these like characters appear that were like in the wall that like had lit up or come out or something. It was crazy. But he wasn't allowed to speak to them at all. And he's like, that's not how science works. You got to be able to collaborate. So like if this is freed up and able to go out of the private sector into the public sector, that all of these genius minds are going to be able to innovate and look at this craft and work on it, then I think we're going to be able to crack the code of like how these things fly, how this propulsion system possibly works, of like that, you know, Lazar had said like it works opposite than like a combustion engine. Like, you know, you burn something and it pushes something out the back and it moves you forward. That's every propulsion system on the planet does that. From like wearing a pair of like rollerblades to like a plane works like that. But the way he described that this works, it bends space-time like distortion in front of it, and the craft like falls into the distortion, and that's how it moves along. So it's opposite. He described it as a bowling ball on a mattress, and push your fist down and the bowling ball rolls toward your fist, that it's creating a distortion in space-time and the object falls into it. So I don't pretend to understand the science of this, but that's the basics of it. Like if we had like public knowledge of just like the science community, the global science community, because we have to think about that as a global society of all of us from all walks of life, all these people that are just vastly so intelligent all over the world, being able to collaborate on this, I mean, first of all, that would just bring us together so much. Oh my God, we have this non-human intelligence and technology that could vastly improve for all of us, for all of humanity. Let's all collaborate and work on this for all of us to work on this. I mean, that might be
Yeah.
pie in the sky to think about that. And I'm like, that might not be how it is. It probably wouldn't be, but I would like to see it that way.
It's one of those weird things, right? I mean, and again, I like I said, I think about the sociological impact and how like keeping us separate has seemed to be a goal in like every aspect of life. You know, we're taught about
Yeah.
the differences between us and this adversarial thing, you know. I mean, it's simple as team sports all the way up to then we're talking about the Olympics, country against
Yeah.
country. And then it's just like it's one of those weird things where it feels like it's an agenda to keep us separated from each other.
I would very much agree with that.
And
Yeah.
it's
And
and for me it's like this, you're exactly right. I mean, if you had the world's greatest minds come together and be able to talk freely and converse about this stuff.
and openly and transparently to the public of exactly what you're working on. No more lies, no more obfuscation, no more of like, oh, we can tell you this but not that because of national security. Like, this is what we're working on for like the betterment of humanity. Again, it's pie in the sky to even think that. How amazing would that fucking be though? Like,
But
we did again, like that's one of, like I say, like my big takeaways from this. Number one, we got to stop fucking looking at each other as different. That's the
right.
big thing. Like, we're a bunch of fucking hairless apes on a planet on that edge of a fucking galaxy with like how many other billions of galaxies are there out there? Do you see
Right.
those pictures from the James Webb Telescope? Like, let us be humbled for a fucking second and knock it the fuck off. Like, we're not that special.
But
We're not.
it's a
And that's
weird
what
thing though.
humanity needs. We're not that special.
But it's a weird thing too because you talk to some people and they don't even know about that stuff because they're so beat down by life
Yeah.
because of them being poor, because of them being addicted to whatever you can imagine, because of all of these things that keep them ground that like in just dealing with life. They're not able to think that way, to think about that stuff. You know how many times I've been asked, "How do you have all this time to think?"
Um,
It was a joke back on my podcast way back in 2005, but it's
that's funny.
true. I've been that guy that's always been like, "But what about this?" And people are like, "What? How? Why? How are you coming up with this?" And I'm like,
Oh
"Cuz I
yeah,
think about it."
in college all the time. Yeah, my roommates were like, they're like, how the fuck do you know this? Or how do you remember all these things? Like, even back in like 04, 05, before the retro gaming thing broke, like I had like all my Super Nintendo games up there, and there was like when we would drive out, I was the only one with a car, so we would go to like a Walmart, and there was this place called Dragon's Den that I wanted to go to. It was like nerdy Magic cards, but they sold Nintendo and Super Nintendo games there. And like I could only go there because like there wasn't an internet yet to yell and scream about retro games and everything now. So I would go there to like specifically talk to these guys and like nerd the fuck out about like, okay, let's break down why Final Fight 3 is the best brawler on the system in like 2004. And like my roommates would listen to me and be like, how the hell do you know all this stuff? And why do you know all this stuff? And how do you have the time to know all this shit? And why do you care so much? And I'd be like, well, fuck you. That's why. And I'm driving, so you have to deal with this crap. And I'm gonna go talk to them. But like I would talk about aliens and all sorts of shit back then too. I'm in a text message group with a bunch of my roommates from college. And and this was from like 17, 18 years ago. And I'm like, I was texting them pictures like in Congress, and they're like, of fucking course you are. Like, we saw you on TV before or something. I was on CNN. Like CNN did a pan down the hallway, and we were all like that. And yeah, one of my roommates, James, who's like, he's very smart, but he's like the most pragmatic human being and thinks is ridiculous. And he's like, of course you're still obsessed with the aliens. And I'm like, you could take your ego and just shove it up your ass because you're gonna see how right I am.
Did you
But I've always been asked that too. Like, yeah, why? How do you have time to do all this? And why do you do all this?
right.
And I'm like, I don't know. I have a fucking compulsion to do it. Like, first I have generalized anxiety disorder and my brain goes 500 miles an hour anyway. And like, I can't, I'm like, I take medication for it, so I'm fine. But like, my brain doesn't fucking stop. Like, if you see the amount of artwork that I do, like, I don't stop of how prolific I am. Like, yeah, I mean, I got one painting of like a Kirby here. I'm working as like a commission, but I have like four other ones going. And like the archive on my computer of like, I have like literally hundreds and hundreds of ideas for paintings. I can't stop. It's just how my brain is. Like I'm just endlessly fascinated being like, oh, there's so much more to humanity than this crap that we're being fed. And like I've always thought this ever since I was a little kid. I'm like, this reality that we live in is just this is fucking Mickey Mouse bullshit. This is stupid.
It is
What we're
weird, isn't
doing.
it? It's like this idea that you grow up to be part of this cog in a wheel
Yeah.
with I mean, seriously, it's almost like the government thinks that the best person is the one that keeps quiet, works his ass off for as little as possible, and then doesn't think about how messed up his life is.
Oh,
It's
absolutely. That's the best thing, to be a productive cog in the wheel of society so the upper class could stay in power and you shut the fuck up and you keep pushing the buttons and turning the dial so they could stay rich at the top and you don't ask any fucking questions. You be an obedient worker. I still like I was gonna go back. I have an appointment with my doctor anyway for like my meds and stuff, and I wanted to talk to him. Just like I wanted, I like being in and out of therapy. It helps me about stuff. And a big thing I've wanted to revisit is like I've never anytime I've had like a full-time like office job ever since I graduated college, I have felt so beaten down and like constrained and just unfulfilled. That's the best word I can put it. Completely unfulfilled and just drained. Even when like, because I have a degree in graphic design, I worked in like corporate graphic design and I would make good money. I would make really good money there. And my bank account would be happy, but I would hate it. And like the fact that I can do Squarepainter now and like, yeah, I make decent money on it. I'm not living large, like I said, by any means, but I'm like, I'm so much happier. My base level of happiness is so much better that like I do it on my own time. Even though I granted, like I work like 8, 9, 10 hours a fucking day. Because again, I can't fucking stop. It's what I do. I'm a fucking machine. I don't know how I do what I do. Like, but I get to come down here. I get to sit downstairs. I mean, like my studio is a corner in like my living room in my house. I have this tiny little row house in Philly, a 2-story row house with me and Nina live here, and I couldn't with our cats and our bird, and I couldn't be happier about that. I'm just happy that we were able to carve this out, and I'm able to do this without slaving away at a fucking job. Like I want to talk to a therapist about like why can't I work a normal job? What is wrong with me about that? Because I always gravitated towards freelance work because like I could see the end. I'm like, is it a 3 months project? I'm gonna only have to go into the office 3 months, and I'm literally within the first week I'm counting down the days because I just can't like fucking do it. And like when I was like drinking, man, Jesus Christ, like I would get so fucking drunk on like Fridays because I just couldn't take it. Like, man, I would just get drunk just playing video games because I just needed to like have a fucking release. And
yeah,
granted, I kicked the booze and I'm so much happier about that. If you're an anxious person, alcohol and anxiety don't mix at all. Not good. But uh I just don't know. I just can't fucking do it.
it's
And I guess like I don't know. I know I'm not a normal person. I mean, look at my paintings. I paint the like distill down what I do. I paint the same shape over and over and over again in different colors from video games from 30 years ago. That's not normal to do that. That's a weird thing to do. I mean, you break it down like I mean, I'm super aware of it. Like it's a weird fucking thing I do. And people pay me money for it and I get constant commissions and like I have a fan base and I love it. And I've
it's
gotten to
cool.
travel to all these cons and I've because of Square Painter, inadvertently I met you because I met Billy and Jay and everything. So it's opened all these doors for me.
That's
But
I mean,
like it's weird. It's a
you
weird thing.
you talk about that cuz I worked for a fruit company, okay? All right, I was doing marketing for them and I was making really good money. Really good money. I don't know if you know about the me getting sick and all that stuff, but they were very
No.
good to me. Very, very good to me. Lots of years of recovery, 7 different surgeries, blah, blah, blah. I had to learn to walk again, all that kind of stuff,
Oh,
right?
wow. Okay. I
Yeah,
had no idea.
yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, I'm way past that. That was my last surgery was 6 years ago. So
I'm
I've had lots of time
glad
to
you're
recover.
okay. Holy shit.
Thank you. Oh yeah, I
Yeah.
could have died. But anyway,
Wow. I'm
anyway,
glad you didn't.
one of
Anyway,
the craziest thing is I was working for them, and even though I loved the company, I loved what I was doing, I hated what I was doing, and it was driving me insane. And then, I mean, I literally walked out on my job, and ba- basically,
no notice?
huh? No, here's what happened. I got up because what happened was it was this thing that I knew that okay, this is going to take me all night to do this thing. They gave it to me at the last minute on a Friday or a Thursday night or something like that. I knew I had to work all night pretty much. And so I closed my laptop, I stood up and I said, I don't know why I fucking do this job or whatever I said. And I just left. And
Did you yell it in the office?
I'm about 2
Oh,
miles
it's like
down.
Office Space. That's great.
Huh?
That's like Office
Yeah.
Space.
So I'm like 2 miles down the road and I'm like, oh my God, what did I just do? And so I got on the phone with my boss and all that. And I said, look, I'm sorry. I'm upset. This is what happened, blah, blah, blah. They're like, fine, whatever. So again, I'm not a religious person. I don't believe in fate, anything like that. 2 days later is when Billy called me to say, hey, do you want to work on this movie?
Nah, things happen for a
And it
reason.
was
I
like,
believe that.
it
Things
was,
happen for a reason.
it's,
When you're in an impact, when you're at a real crossroads in life, like when the real shit happens.
well,
I've been
and
there before and I can't think anything off the top of my head, but like I've had things like that happen before where it's shit happens for a reason.
it was such a strange thing. And then just a few days later, I'm putting in my 2 week notice and I've been doing that stuff ever since.
That's
And it led me to
amazing.
doing this show, meeting all kinds of people, meeting you, meeting,
Yeah.
I mean, it's
No, shit
insane.
happens. Shit happens for a reason, but you kind of you got to take it and make it happen. I don't know how it works. I don't know how that works.
I don't
But
either.
there's something to it. But that's almost like, do you watch Seinfeld? That's my favorite show
Yeah,
ever.
it's a good show.
You ever see the one where the early episode where George goes into his office and starts screaming at his boss, and he's like, "I fucking quit! I quit! I can't fucking stand you!" And he leaves, and then like and he's talking to Jerry, and he's just like, "Well, what are you gonna do for work?" And he's like, "I don't know. Like the market's terrible for real estate." And then they're just like, "What if you go back on Monday and pretend like it never happened?" And he's like, that's a good idea. I'm going to try to do that. And of course, the whole thing fucking backfires on him because it's George. It's hysterical. Actually, Larry David told the story that really happened to him when he worked for Saturday Night Live. He flipped out because they like wouldn't put his like skit and they never would listen to him. And he's like, fuck you, I'm out of here. And then like came back on Monday, pretended like it didn't happen. And somehow it worked out for him. So like, it's crazy that you said that, like for Apple, like that's a George Costanza story, man.
Yeah, it's well, I mean, again, it's I was contracted through them, but they again, as much as I look back and go, man, I was just a big ball of stress because I was in control of all of Canada, all of America, all of these contracted employees, and doing their scheduling and all this stuff. It was nuts. It was an insane amount of work that I was doing. But as soon as I left, it was like, and Billy will tell you, I was calling him up, going, "Dude, give me something to do," because I was like, I was ready to go, bam, 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 and Billy and Jay are more like, "Hey, man, we'll get to it when we get to it." You know what I mean? Just
Oh, I
because
know. Yeah,
they've been on a different level for a long time. So
I know they
I
have.
was probably bugging the crap out of Billy, and he's just like, "Dude, just fucking chill. I'll call you when
Just
I call
chill.
you." You
Yeah,
know?
I'll get to it when I get to it.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
yeah,
but it was weird now looking back. It's like I just can't imagine going back and doing that stuff again. I mean, I will if I have to, because I mean, it's not
yeah.
like YouTube's paying the bills, but you know, hey.
No, God, no. Like I worry about that all the time. Like if because I've been doing this full time since like I remember I got fired from my last freelance job. I was working at Temple University in 2019. I got fired from it when I was coming back from Portland Retro Gaming Expo and I was on the plane and we're landing and I got service and I got the text message from the staffing agency that they're like, they don't want you to come back for whatever stupid reason or whatever. The job was really boring anyway. But the only thing that was good about it was only like 3 days a week, and it paid like $35 an hour, which was pretty nice.
Yeah.
But I just the work I was doing was like really boring. It was like the most repetitive pre-press kind of design work. I hated it. Like the job would just drag. I actually and like I would watch a lot of UFO shit like when I was there. Like I remember the Rogan interview with Lazar came out when I was working there, and I watched it like 3 times just because I was fucking bored at work. But that was the last job I had, and I was just doing Squarepainter shit. And then like COVID rolls around, and then I thought my job, like, oh, it's like, well, no one's going to be buying art now, like with this. And then it was the opposite. Like people were supporting all these artists, and I wasn't even for like all of 2020. I was telling people on my like people would message me on Twitter and Instagram, and they still do all the time, like about I wasn't even taking commissions because I was just painting shit and it would sell. Like it's still, it blows my mind every time that happens. Like I would paint like something from Link to the Past or something that people really knew, or like, you know, one of the Castlevanias or something. And like as I'm posting it, I'll post it on my shop, and as I'm posting it on my social medias, I'll do like Twitter and then Facebook, and then I put it on Instagram. And like as I'm doing that, I'll get the notification on my phone that it's sold, like within a minute. It blew my mind, and I'm so grateful that I've been able to do that. Like I have a couple of major clients, I guess. I have one guy that I work with now who he's a great dude. He commissions me for tons and tons of work. I just sent a bunch of stuff out. I'm working for him now. We just put a bunch of other designs together, and like I have a bunch of other people, like, you know, that want some horror art. This one other person commissioned me for some Friday the 13th stuff, and like I'm so grateful that, like, I mean, I work my ass off, but that I get paid to do this. And I know I have money from my share of the mortgage. And, you know, Nina was like, oh, you know, because they're on unemployment currently. They got laid off because they do IT. And I'm like, oh, I'm able to shoulder all the majority of the bills this month, and it's no problem. You know, I have money. I don't buy a lot of stuff, but like I was able to shoulder the bills. I'm like, I couldn't ask for any more than that. Like maybe a little bit more of like, I just want peace of mind. I just want to be able to like not have money be the main thing that I stress about every day, because that's like my main stress point is money.
Yeah.
If I could get to the point where I have enough income streams coming in to satiate that, where I'm like, the mortgage is good, the rent's good, we could buy a new car if we need to, like the vet bills we could take care of, doctor bills, we like the shit's taken care of. And if we need to spend money on the house, it's not, it sucks, but it's not that big of a deal. If I can get there, I'll be happy. Let me get there. And like, you know, if we had free energy society, all of us would inherently just be there.
Right.
So we don't have to worry about all this shit, because we're not meant to worry about this crap. And like a lot of people don't even think about that. And a lot of people like
that's just the way it is.
Yell at the idea about like a universal basic income. It's like, motherfucker, do you realize how much wealth there is in the world? Like if there was like government regulations put in place where like corporations couldn't price gouge on rent, and like had to bring down the price of food, price of gas, all this stuff, all the basic living expenses had to be brought down and capped at a certain point where they would still make billions and billions of dollars a year, but not as much, not as many billions, but still billions. And we could have a universal basic income of even like, how much would it help you if you had an extra $1,000 a month just coming in for you? That would change everything, right?
Yeah.
Just an extra $1,000 a month. Me too. Like that would free up so much if we just had a basic income like that. That's not much to ask for. And I mean, people say, oh, it's socialism or whatever. Like, yeah, well, think about the hundreds of billions of dollars that the government is fucking giving to these aerospace corporations, and you don't say a fucking word about that. Yet when I say like, I should get this, and you should get this, and your family should get this, and we all should, like, we're all fucking human beings. We need to fucking live, man. Come on. Like something's got to give here. The system sucks. Like it's so weighted against us. No matter where we are in the political spectrum, we're getting fucked. We're in every way. It's like it's just a gangbang of like just of bullshit on all of us constantly. It is, man. Think about it.
No, you're right. You're right.
politicians, like, they don't, I mean, yeah, some of them do, but the majority, they don't give a fuck. Like, and then people yelling about, like, oh, having a free market societies. I don't want to get too political on here, but like saying, oh, we should have a free market society. I want government as small as possible. I'm like, well, you're really fucking stupid, because corporations don't give a fuck about me or you, and they will sell out anybody in the world for money. And you want to have no government regulation on these corporations, on like these energy corporations that are already completely destroying the fucking planet? Like, hardline right-wing Tim Burchett, I heard him say on one of these podcasts, we could solve the energy crisis and we could solve climate change if we had access to this technology. And then he walked it back for a second. And he's like, oh, well, if that's the case, because like he knows he has to walk that party line. But these fucking people know, these politicians know. ExxonMobil knew in the 70s and probably even before that, of like throwing all this crap into the atmosphere and burning fossil fuels was like completely fucking up the environment. And I know, and then it gets spun as like this, oh, hippy dippy tree hugger bullshit. It's like, nah, dude, like the way I put it, it's like it's like if you just kept shitting in your house and you're filling your house with shit, and you have more and more shit literally filling up your house. That's what we're doing. Like, what else do you want for, like, what other analogy can you have?
I mean,
here?
that's,
Like,
I'd say that's
you're living in your own feces. That's what we're doing. And then you want to pour gasoline on it and set it on fire, like, because the climate's changing too. So throw that in the equation. So you're living with a house on fire full of your own shit. Wonderful analogy, but it's the truth. You want to end on that?
I think we might. I think it's the best. So look, here's the thing. I don't want to give you homework or anything like that, but here's the thing. I know there's things that we didn't even touch.
Uh-huh.
I want to know what those things are so we can do this again. You know what I mean?
Okay. I'll throw this out there. We'll talk about it on here. I was going to talk about it afterwards because I've had this idea. I have too much on my plate to start a thing. Like,
Sure.
That's why I know a place is not a thing. I don't have the time to edit. I don't have the brain space to do it. You want to make a UFO podcast, and you want to have me on regularly, and you want to have guests on, and you want to make it a thing, I will make it a thing. I'm telling you, chat, that right now. If you guys enjoyed this and you want it, I will say that. If you want to, we can discuss this. I had a great time talking about this, and I could never stop. Alien human hybrids, probably. Look up Dr. David Jacobs. You want to learn about alien human hybrids. He's another UFO. He's one of the guys that looked into alien abductions. He thinks he looks at it as very, very bad, that it's not good, that these essentially NHIs are using us as like incubators to revitalize their society, and that's it. The really great stream. All right, I'm throwing that out there. You want to, that'll be something we could do once a week. You want to fucking talk aliens and shit, and like try to get other people on. There's tons of other people that would want to talk about this. You know, Grant Cameron from Canada. He's an old school YouTube guy. He goes on any and every podcast. Have him. He's just this crazy Canadian dude. Like, oh, talking about, oh yeah, there's that real big UFO right up there. Like, you know, that's how he talks. Like, it's amazing. I fucking love him. Look up Grant Cameron shit. Like, he's a fucking boomer. Like, all of his thumbnails are just like a random like screen grab that YouTube makes for his thumbnail. And it could be like him, like with a weird face or something, and that's the thumbnail.
Okay.
I fucking love Grant Cameron. But like consciousness is what he always talks about. This is all rooted in consciousness. So like, he'd be on there. If you could, like, Ross Coulthart goes on all these podcasts. If we did that and we had Ross Coulthart on here, I would be like, I don't fanboy or anything like that, but it would be something to like sit down and talk to this guy. Like, dude, I've been following your work like crazy for the past 5 years. Like, you're like my go-to source of me being obsessed with this. Like, I wait for you to put out like a new Need to Know podcast.
Okay. Well, I mean, I'll definitely have
whatever.
to think about how I can work that into the stuff. But yeah, I mean, why not?
You want to, have Melvor and like Dodongo on, because I like the thing you guys did on Chasing the Unknown.
Oh, I think that was great. Shit. I think that was
because I'm sitting there watching that video and I'm just like yelling out loud, like, but I want to know, we got to talk about this, and like, you're bringing up this point, but you're missing this, and like, oh, that's a good point, but how about that? Like, that's
And
always
see,
how I am when I listen to these UFO things. Like when you did that live stream, I was like, you know what you're talking about. You really you're grounded in this. Like I had a lot to say, and that's why I was like, if you ever want me on, let's talk about this shit because
well, and that's the
clearly I have
thing
a
is
lot to say.
there's so much, dude, there's so much tonight that like I don't know what I don't know. You know what I mean? So it's like there's a ton of stuff where I'm like, I know
I
there's
know
got
a
to be more.
lot, and it's. I mean, a lot of people are like, and whenever anyone's like, "Oh, you want to know the truth about aliens? Talk to me," and I'm like, I don't know the truth about them. I just believe all this stuff, but I could be wrong. I don't think I'm wrong.
Yeah, but
I'm like,
you have a lot of knowledge. You have a
yeah, I do because I read a lot about this. I listen to a lot of like podcasts and stuff. I listen to like I filter out the noise. I listen to like good people, like I've said, like Ross Coulthart, Richard Dolan. Those are the voices you want to listen to. Grant Cameron's really good. Kurt Mungle of who he has on Theories of Everything. That UFO podcast. I don't know the guy's name is Andy, but he I don't know his last name, and he has this other guy on. Also, Project Unity. Guy's name is Jay, I think. He's from England. I like him too. He has really good thoughts about stuff. He actually brought up of like why do we always look at aliens and everything and NHI as like a national security issue instead of being like making peaceful contact with them? Why does it have to be national security and defense instead of that?
hmm,
And that's why I like him a lot because whenever anybody brings up a point that challenges what I think or makes me think of something different, like, oh, I didn't even think of that. Subscribe immediately.
right.
Subscribe, put the bell on. Okay, now you're on my radar. I want to hear what you have to say. You're a smart person. You're going to challenge the way I think. You're going to challenge stuff. That's what I like. I love being challenged about stuff. But
Yeah.
not if you're an idiot. Like, if you're a dum dum, I'm going to smell it immediately. Like, I don't want to hear that. Like, no, I root out the stupids.
Is
Order
he,
42 Squarepainter collab. All right, cool. You want to do it? I'll fucking do it.
do you have a
Do
YouTube
you have a
channel?
YouTube channel or a podcast? I don't have that talking about this stuff, and I fucking should because like my partner Nina really gets sick and tired of me yelling about this shit literally almost every fucking day. Like they're so happy that I have like my old friend Brian, who I've known for like 20 years. He was tall black dude, shaved head that I went to the congressional hearings with. He's a super old friend of mine. And Nina's like, I'm glad you have him to rant for 3 hours. Like I will literally be on like just even during the day, because like he's like he does like deliveries and he works for like Verizon and shit. He's always driving around all over the place. So he listens to podcasts all the time and he'll just call me about something or I'll call him. Like I was watching something like, do you know who Billy Meyer is in like the 70s? It was this guy in Sweden who supposedly filmed all these like UFOs and
I've
shit. They
heard the
said they were
name.
from
Yeah.
Pleiades. Yeah. And they're like really compelling. Like, I don't know how he faked these videos. I mean, they could have been, but not. Anyway, I was watching a documentary from like 78 that I came across about Billy Meyer, like filming him and talking to him because like he's not alive anymore. And like I just happened to call Brian and be like, how do you feel about the Billy Meyer videos? And next thing I know, the sun is down and it's 3 hours later and I finished a painting and I'm like, God damn, like I haven't even showered today. Like, and Nina's just like, I'm glad you have someone to word vomit on with this instead of coming up and being like, oh my God, is this someone and they just said this and it's like there's this kind of being or something. And Nina's like, that's cool and all, but like I need the hard science.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think it'd be fun. I just, like I said, I would have to figure out how we can make it all
Sure.
work and all that, but I think
You
it'd
want to
be
do
a
that.
blast.
Like I've wanted to do this. And the answer is no, I don't have a YouTube channel or podcast. I do have a YouTube channel about my square painter shit. I haven't uploaded a video in 3 years because the amount I would do time lapse videos where I'd have like my webcam over my desk and I would paint and like I couldn't sit. I had to like sit like this. So my hand was like in that. And it would take me like anywhere from like 3 to 5 hours to do a painting. And then like have to like compress the footage down, edit it, and then do a thing like, hey, this painting from Zelda 2, and you guys know this, and there. And I'm gonna play the YouTube algorithm. I'd be like, Square Painter and keep it pixelated, like they like my friends at Screenwave Media were like, yeah, you got to have a catchphrase. I'm like, oh God, I really got to do this. So I tried playing the YouTube game for years and I would only get like a few hundred views. And I was like, this isn't worth it. So I have a whole bunch of time-lapse videos. The effort, I wasn't getting the return that I wanted out of that.
Right.
But no, I should have this. I don't have the time with my full-time art job, painting all the time, and especially with Rex Viper, it's like we haven't even touched on all the other shit that I do. Like we're recording like a fucking full-length album, and like we're gonna have like 15 songs on it, and you know, like I got to go back and fix some bass lines because like I don't know if you guys know James Rolfe, the angry video game nerd. Like,
Yeah.
you know, like I've been friends with him for like years, and now like working with him, like he really is like a creative genius. Like talk about a man whose brain doesn't fucking stop. Rolf's brain does not fucking stop at all. And like that's why we have like so many friggin' songs. We're constantly working on things. He'll text me or all of us like group text 3:30 in the morning or something. Can't sleep. How do you feel about this? Wrote this. Here's these chords that I want to use. Have these lyrics for like original songs. We haven't even finished recording the full length yet, which is just mashups of like video game music and 80s rock. And he's already writing like our third album of like, you know, our original songs. So like working with that, like there's a ton of shit going on with Rex Viper. Like we're playing Portland Retro Gaming Expo and we're getting ready for that. We're going to be playing new songs there. And that's a whole other beast in itself. Like working in a band that's like guests at a con. There's so many moving parts behind the scenes of shit that goes on. We probably have, I mean, Rex Viper probably has like 20 email threads going at once in my Gmail. And we probably have another 10 on top of that just for Portland for like, you know, we got to rent instruments, figuring out hotels, flights, and like, it's a lot, man. Point is, I don't have the bandwidth or the time
Right.
to do a podcast where I can rant about this. My friend Brian wanted to do one, and he's working on like he has like 2 jobs, and he's in a band also, like this weird prog rock band he's in, and he's working on like independent movies and shit like that. He's working on this one about like time travelers and aliens, because of course he is. Like Brian would, if we do this, you'd have to have Brian on. Like he's an interesting dude. But yeah, because he was going to start a podcast, and I told him like, look, man, you handle this, you get an editor, you do this, you get in the driver's seat. I can't be in the driver's seat for this. I will just come on, we'll talk about a topic, and I'll yell my shit about it, and I'll help with marketing, but I can't do it. I can't be the guy.
Right.
You know?
No, I get that.
Yeah, I wish I could. I literally don't have enough hours in the day. And like I need my sleep. Like I've tried working on like 4 to 6 hours of sleep. I can't do it. You know, I go to sleep around midnight, and I get up at like 8:30 in the morning to like, you know, get Nina and I do the house stuff, and like taking care of the cats in the morning, we got a little bird upstairs. I take care of him. And then, you know, we get to work. Nina streams. Nina's been streaming all night. They do Twitch and sell art. I think they're working on art on Twitch right now. But yeah, that's what we do. We're working all friggin' day.
It's awesome.
Yeah. And
Well,
I watch all this alien and UFO shit while I'm down here on the other monitor where the chat is. I have like my YouTube thing pulled up, and I'll have like 20 tabs open with like all these, oh shit, I want to watch all these videos, and like I'll just see like, oh, okay, new podcast episode. Oh, they had this guy on, or oh, I don't know who this guy is. Let me watch this. Do you know who? Oh, another one, Chris Lato. Do you ever heard of him? Write him down. Lehto, Chris Lato. He's a newer guy. He's only been in the UFO stuff for like 2 years, but he's a former like F-14 pilot or something like that. I think he was in the Air Force and Navy. I can't remember, but he does a friggin' fantastic podcast. Always has guests on, like really, really interested in this. Like all he wants is just the truth. He's from America. He's American, but he lives in Portugal right now. He flew from fucking Portugal to DC for the hearings. I got to meet him there. Actually, I was like honored to meet the guy. Actually, Lato just did a podcast today where he had this guy Mike on, who I met at the hearings also. The guy was like a retired dentist that got into this. And actually Lato posted a picture in the beginning, and it was like right in the back. me talking to the guy, the dentist, and I was just like, oh, that's my fucking bald head talking to Mike right there and there. I was like, it was fantastic meeting you guys, and like, yeah, he responded and everything. So he's another one. Watch
Okay.
Chris Lato. He's great. His channel's doing great. He's almost at like 100,000 subs. He's just like he's a very, despite not being in this for a long time, he's he's a good voice you want to have in this. It's like someone who's a former military pilot and really empathizes with like Ryan Graves and David Fravor, especially talking about like air safety and all this stuff of like, and how serious like pilots take their job and everything. And he said like he carried a copy of like the Constitution in his pocket every time he did a flight exercise. Like he's really, really serious about this shit. And it's just follow him. Go, all the people I've mentioned, please go follow those guys. They know, I mean, like especially Richard Dolan and like Ross Coulthart. Those are like the sources of where I get my shit that I'm essentially just regurgitating through my brain out here. Like, Ross Coulthart's the one that was vetting David Grush for over a year. Like, I
Right.
don't have, like, I'm just a guy. He's like this big time journalist that gets to talk to all these people that come to them. Like, I don't talk to any of those people. I wish I did. I'd lose my mind talking to somebody like that was from like the black project world. It was like, oh yeah, in like the 70s, I worked on reverse engineering, like, the metallurgy of a craft. I'd be like, I'm gonna talk to you for fucking forever, and you got to deal with that now, because I will have endless questions. Like, don't tell me that because I will not shut up.
Well, I'll just say, look, I think this was amazing. I think everybody had a good time. I had a great
Yeah,
time. Thanks so much for coming on. And of
dude,
course, you can find
anytime,
him.
anytime. Like, you would want to do that, let me know.
Yeah, and Squarepainter everywhere. Twitter, Instagram,
Yeah, just
Squarepainter.
follow, please. Yeah, follow me on Twitter, and I use Threads also, if that's even really around. I use Twitter, Threads, and Instagram, but those are like what I'm
I haven't done Threads at
mostly
all.
on.
I have the
Huh?
account, but I've never done anything on it. But anyway,
With Threads,
yeah.
it's like I'll have that. I have a Blue Sky account. Like, I feel like it's inevitable that Twitter X or whatever it is gonna, it's eventually gonna implode. Like, I don't know what they're doing. I thought it was gonna be over when like when Musk fired like half of the IT staff and these people were like scrambling to like
Right.
keep shit together. Like, I was like, all right, I guess this is it now, since like literally the infrastructure of the site is falling apart, but it didn't. So I don't know.
Right. Don't know. But
Don't
look,
We don't know, and
yeah.
that's what we're here to figure out, because we don't know.
Anyway, we'll be back probably next week at some point. Probably next Wednesday again because of Ahsoka, because I'm a Star Wars dork. I gotta review Ahsoka on
I
Tuesday.
haven't
So
even caught up to all that. I finally watched Mando season 3. I got to watch Andor and all that. I mean,
Andor's.
dude, I got the Rebel Alliance tattoo. I
Oh
love
yeah.
Star Wars.
Well, I mean,
Yeah, the
yeah.
Stormtrooper helmet. Yeah, of course.
I'm in the
I
movie.
like.
I'm in the movie with that. So
Wait,
you,
what?
in Adventures in Game Chasing, you saw the movie, right?
I actually have not.
Oh, you haven't seen it yet.
I was gonna bring that up. Yeah, Billy, you still in the chat?
I don't know if he is or
I'm
not,
sorry, man.
but yeah.
I still haven't seen the movie.
Okay. Well, I'll just say I'm in it a few times, but
Okay.
just look for the stormtrooper.
All right.
But anyway, guys, thanks for being here. Thanks for all the chats. Sorry, I did. We barely looked at the chat because we were just been talking this whole time. It's been
Yeah, I
great.
mean, I looked on it a little bit, but like, yeah, like I said before we get on, I'm like, look, man, we're gonna start on one topic and it's gonna go in 30 directions right away.
I loved
And
it.
you UFOs do that, and it's just how like my mind works. I go from one topic to the next.
It's great. I loved it.
Yeah, man.
But anyway, thanks again for being here, and we'll
Of
see you
course,
next
man.
time. Bye.
Yes.